I want to give you a real quick history of the town halls. Originally, we started in the summer of 2007, and the Maryland Organized Community 6th Region Diaspora Caucus was doing them. The idea of the town hall then was to bring the community together, discuss important issues, and build an independent Pan-African agenda. Not just us telling you what the issue is, but we wanted the community to tell us and to help us build that Pan-African agenda together. Another thing that we did in those town halls was to nominate and elect first the Maryland Council of Elders, and then also a group of representatives and observers who would be able to become part of a delegation who could travel to the African Union, the United Nations, Organization of American States, international Pan-African conferences, any number of things, but those would be individuals who would have been nominated and chosen by the Pan-African community in Maryland and in any other state that is doing that kind of organizing on the ground, as opposed to us depending on the Congress or the Senate, which really doesn't represent us in the first place, to go out and tell all these people what is happening with regard to people of African descent. So that was the idea of it. 2007 to 2017, we did about 1 or 2 a year. 2017, we kind of picked things up and we did 5 of them at Art Social Club, and we developed a Pan-African agenda there with a number of activists and community members who attended. In 2018, we did 4, 2019, we did 3, and those were in cooperation with the Maryland Council of Elders. From 2020 until this year, it was COVID time, so we really didn't have a lot of gatherings in person, so we didn't have any town halls then. But this year, we decided we're going to start up again. So on July 13th was our first one. We talked about emergency preparedness and community defense. We had Brother Bomani Shakur, who came up from Georgia, and he gave a presentation. Baba Leon Waters zoomed in from New Orleans, and he spoke, and a number of other people in the community spoke. August 24, we had the Black Women's Cooperative Defense Town Hall, and we had a number of activists and organizers from this area who spoke about emergency preparedness and self-defense from the sisters' perspective, and we also had a demonstration of physical self-defense by Baba Osar Winkler, and that's Dr. Osar Winkler's father, who is also a martial arts instructor. So that was a very rewarding session. And then that brings us today. Today is our electoral tricks, as we're calling it, town hall meeting, and we hope to be able to talk about a few issues regarding how we as a community approach elections. So that is that part. Now, very briefly, I'm going to introduce to you the Maryland Pan-African Cooperative Coalition. I'll just say that a lot of our motivation, at least a lot of the motivation for me, comes from this quote by the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Almost very few people actually use this particular quote. We get stuck on "Up you mighty race" and "Meet me in a whirlwind" and "One God, one aim with destiny." But to me, this is the most important one. The thing to do is to get organized. Stay separated, you'll be exploited, you'll be robbed, you'll be killed. Get organized and you compel the world to respect you. And to me, that was the most, really in my mind, was the most important quote that he gave, because it was an instruction and a prescription and telling us what we need to do. Now, getting organized seems to be a difficult thing because we got all these different types of organizations. We've got grassroots, we got artists, we got business, we got educators, we got scientists, revolutionaries, mainstream and Pan-African spiritual leaders, media, pro-democracy and political organizations, lawyers, prisoner support groups, international organizations, and more. And part of the problem has been that we have not been able to pull these different types of organizations together. It seems that they tend to go about their business and not really talk enough to each other to really organize a comprehensive plan to move our entire community forward. As a matter of fact, we have a number of cliques, and some of our organizations go in one clique, some go in another. And what we really would like to do is get away from our different organizations traveling around and perhaps not talking to each other sufficiently, and actually getting together in some kind of an organized format. And by that, I don't mean a hierarchy where one person is in charge. Instead, the idea here in this particular illustration is that we have our organizations arrayed in a circle, and our objective is in the middle, and our missions to achieve that objective are drawn as straight lines. If you look at it for a little while, the central objective, a free, self-determining, prosperous, Pan-African world at peace with itself, its people, and the world, would represent the hub. The organizations arrayed around it would be the rim, and their missions would be the spokes. So this diagram is called spokes of the wheel. And one of the ideas of a wheel is that as long as the spokes are intact, as long as you have a strong rim and a well-defined hub, that wheel will take you where you want to go. If you start breaking those spokes, like we sometimes do as organizations, we discredit each other, the wheel breaks down, we're stuck on the side of the road, we wonder why the Asian community, the LGBTQ community, white women, and now white men are going past us. So that's the idea of the Maryland Pan-African Cooperative Coalition, and that's the tentative logo. The executive committee, and at this time I'm going to turn the mic over to Sister Tomiko, because I know she's got a few things she wants to talk about as far as what we have done as an organization. Our executive committee is Sister Tomiko Shine, Baba David Murphy, who I believe is on the Zoom, and of course some guy named Cliff. But at any rate, I'm going to hand the microphone over to Sister Tomiko, and she'll be able to talk to you a little bit about some of the things that the coalition's been able to do.
Thank you so much. Peace and blessings. And I just want to get into our panel, and I think we have everybody here. So as Brother Cliff said, I'm part of the Maryland Pan-African Coalition. Of course, it started with just Brother Cliff, and then we had an issue earlier this year where there was a disruption in one of the meetings, and so we had to take a time out, we call it. I suggest we take a time out to understand why did that happen. And so we had to recalibrate the coalition, the organization. We stopped having meetings for about 3 months, and we recalibrated. And one of the suggestions that was given by one of our members, Attorney Ruffin, was that Brother Cliff, now who was 1, should become 3. And so Brother Cliff, we became an executive committee. So I'm a part of that, and as mentioned, Baba David Murphy. I'm a culture anthropologist and the founding director of Asian People in Prison Human Rights Campaign. So I get prisoners out across the nation of African descent. We have several chapters across the nation, been to the United Nations several times. But because their organization has been moving well, what me and Baba David bring to the coalition, to Brother Cliff, Baba David reminds us the need to keep entrepreneurship and the need for us to have money resources. I do a lot of the community, the grassroots organizing. So we created 3 more groups focusing more so on our women, our mamas. One of them is Ubuntu, the Domestic Violence Network. We look at women, our sisters, some who are known, and the brothers too, who have participated in behaviors where they put our sisters in danger or harm, or even themselves or the children. And so we have created that subgroup as chaired, and we work with one of the shelters in the city. We also created the Senior Advocacy Network, which is chaired by Mama Marcy, and that works to help our seniors with their very basic needs, and we give them, make sure they have supplies, household needs, what's called Struggle Week. And then we also have the Pan-African Women's Cooperative Coalition Defense Network, and Mama Earth is on there, she's one of the folks. And so we have created these to really make sure we return to our ground, really return to the community, because if people ain't got food to eat, they ain't got energy, and they can't pay their bills, what sense does all of this makes? So I bring in that part in the committee, and Baba Day brings in the entrepreneurs. And so we're so glad to have y'all here at the town hall, and we're gonna continue to have these. So thank y'all so much. I'm gonna give that to Brother Cliff, and we're gonna go ahead and begin our panel. Men, y'all can come up, take a seat.
Okay, moving on into our meeting plan. So now we're ready to get into the meat of our discussion. I'll very quickly, and I'll let each of them kind of tell you more about themselves. So I'll just name the ones who are here. We have on our panel here Brother Nnamdi Lumumba, and he is the I guess the founder or the coordinator of the Ujima People's Progress Party, or UPP. Mama Earth is on the Zoom, so if she wants to chime in, we welcome bringing that female energy in. We also have from UNIA ACL Barker Clark, Baltimore, Brother Everett Winchester, and he is the man president, and she's the lady president of UNIA ACL Barker Clark. We were hoping we would either have Brother Lawrence Grandpré or Brother Davon Love of Leaders of the Beautiful Struggle, but if we don't have them, we will still have Dr., and I don't know why I don't have him up here. I should have him up here, because this is his place. Dr. Orsar Winkler, who is the proprietor of the Temple of New African Thought. And we hope around a little later on, we will be able to get Baba Charles Barron from New York and Baba Khalid Rahim from Pittsburgh on the Zoom. But at the moment, right now, I'm going to turn the microphones over to our three panelists so that then they can kind of introduce themselves, and I'll let you guys regulate who goes first. Okay, make sure your switch is up. Your microphone switch may be down. Okay. Okay. Yeah. There you go.
Peace and blessings, Hotep. My name is Brother Everett. I am Minister of Information for the entire UNIA ACL globally, formed by Marcus Garvey. And I'm also the president of the local division here in Baltimore, Maryland, UNIA Division 106, Barker Clark, named after our great ancestors, Hannibal Barker, the great general, and Dr. John Henry Clark, our great scholar.
I'd like to greet you with Uhuru. Uhuru means freedom. I'm Namdi Lumumba. I am one of the co-founders of the Ujima People's Progress Party. I served as the state treasurer at the time. We also participate in the National Black Radical Political Congress, where I serve as the national secretary.
Peace and power, Dr. Dennis Assar Winkler, founder of Teen Holistic Wellness Center. I would just say race-based trauma expert, social scientist, scholar activist, host of podcast, counselor, educator, professor. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna share the screen one last time. Hopefully, well, it might be the last time. Hopefully it will not be too many more times I'm gonna have to use the screen, because a lot of it is gonna be on our speakers here. But I want to share a couple of quick little things. Just a couple of graphics that I managed to pull up. This is a saying that I heard years ago, where to find democracy is two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner. And there's a whole backstory to that too, but I'm not going to get into it. And down here on the lower right, of course, we have the classic corrupt politician making a promise, crossing his fingers. Lower left, that jet signifies the fact that pretty much everybody in Congress is a millionaire. So the notion that they actually are like us is kind of questionable. Upper right is a cartoon someone drew. Essentially, you've got government getting fat by being fed by the people who are struggling and often starving. Upper left corner is designed to signify the notion that people of African descent are basically being pushed from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party. And to some degree, there's a little bit of out of the frying pan into the skillet action going on there. And that red, black, and green tray up there in the upper right is the Pan-African agenda that we're all ignoring. So those were some of the things that we kind of motivated what it is we wanted to do. There's again our list of at least most of our panelists, and then wanted to go into a few thoughts, questions, and at this point, once I throw these out there, I'm going to kind of let the panelists kind of decide how they want to work through these. But some of the questions that at least I had in my mind, and I don't know if the rest of you had these questions too, but how do we make electoral decisions? Do we really research, or is it an emotional choice that we're making? What assumptions do we make about electoral politics? Because some of us think one way, think another way about whether or not you should vote, or who you should vote for, all those sorts of things. Do we understand the platforms of the candidates and their parties? I would guess probably nobody knows what the Libertarian Party's platform is. Very few people probably know what the Green Party's platform is, or Dr. Cornel West's platform. And I would guess perhaps no one knows what the platform of the Party for Socialism and Liberation is, or even who the people are who are running for president and vice president in those parties. I have those platforms here, but I don't plan to go into them because I want to concentrate as much as possible on a discussion between our panelists and our community. What alternatives do we have to the Democrats and Republicans? And I just kind of mentioned a few of them. Bill Anandi is here representing UPP. That represents another alternative between to the Democrats and the Republicans. And then the question is, how do we express ourselves that everybody can embrace? What historical models are there of democracy that actually works, like Maurice Bishop's Grenada? What is participatory democracy? Do people really getting involved, and how can we make it work, and where do we go from here? I'm not tackle all of these, but these are some of the things that I kind of wanted us to look at. And then the next slide, and then right after this, I'm going to turn it over. And I'll give Baba Assar, Dr. Assar, credit for that second line there. The first is, what assumptions do we make? And he mentioned another saying that someone said, and we kind of modified it to the lies we tell ourselves on the way to the polls. We tell ourselves, well, the Republicans are evil, or the Democrats take us for granted, or there's no difference between the Democrats and Republicans, or if you vote for one, you're just voting for the lesser of two evils. If you don't vote, you can't complain. If you do vote, you're a sucker for the system. A vote for a third party is a wasted vote. These are all things that different ones among us tell ourselves and tell each other. And I wanted to give our panelists an opportunity, if they wanted to discuss a number of those things. I'm not going to go to the next slide. I'm going to stop sharing. And at this point, I'm going to turn the microphones over to our panelists. The wireless.
You want to moderate the panel?
You can moderate the panel if you like. Okay. So let me see. Now you're going in here.
Hello? Oh, okay. All right, there you go. Okay. First of all, with our panelists, does anybody have to leave or only have a certain amount of time? Okay. Okay, cool. So, Brother Cliff, can we put back up the slide that had the questions?
Okay.
But then I think maybe we should start with y'all. Each are from different organizations. Give our audience in the room and the participants just what's your general views of the election and what's your thought on governments today and what's going on. I'm gonna give y'all a few minutes each because we want to hear your various views. So I'm gonna start with Brother Everett, then we're gonna go to Nami, and then with Baba Assar. Go ahead. Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. The electoral process is very difficult because I like to focus on myself. When I say myself, I mean the black community. A lot of times we go and we look for the feel-good type of vote. Who feels good to us, you know, looking for the lesser of two evils, but we don't really take our vote and use it for power. One of the things that we can do when we're thinking about voting is thinking about what are we getting in return for our vote. I always talk when I'm speaking to people, quid pro quo. It's Latin for something in return. Marcus Garvey teaches us in the UNIA that you should know every politician, every mayor, every city council, even your pastors. You should know everybody in your community so that we may ask for favor in return for what we're doing for them. And I don't see that in the black community. I see as demanding things, crying for things, begging for things, and voting for people, but yet we haven't gotten anything in return. There's a reason why the city roads are messed up, but Baltimore County roads aren't messed up. There's a reason why certain people in the Baltimore community have more things than other people in the Baltimore community, because certain cultures demand in return for their vote, or they're going to get you out of here. So I think my main thing is when we start talking about voting for people, we have to come together collectively. Hopefully we can do that today and start thinking of things that we all think that we need to have. And then from there, vote in people that are going to give us that, knowing that if you don't vote for us in 4 years, we're going to vote you out.
Interesting. Okay, that was from you on that IA. That's the Garvey legacy. Baba Nami, interesting. Go ahead.
Yes, certainly. So our organization is built around contending in the electoral arena as a part of our strategy for national liberation. It is only a part of that strategy because truthfully, elections don't happen every day, right? So I think one of the things that we deal with is what we would call demystifying politics. Because to take electoral politics away from this general discussion of of politics in general is to then create something that is not really important, right? What is the purpose of politics? It's to make decisions, right? Who gets resources? Who decides to lead your community, the government? Who makes policy? Who gets resources? All of these things are an important part of what makes politics. That has yet to have anything to do with elections. Elections have a particular part to do with politics. And before I even go to the question of elections, let's talk about what is democracy. Because again, we see things and there's these ideas that exist in the world, right? And what America does is it creates exceptionalism that we have to assume applies to the whole world. Europe knows nothing about democracy, but yet all of our forms of reference uses all these democratic ideas that either come out of Western Europe or out of America as what democracy is. Democracy is not what happened in Greece, right? If you even study that, if you were to, only 10 to 20% of the population was free to participate in democracy. The other 80% were slaves. The democracy in America was built on slavery and genocide, but yet that is where we started our point of reference for democracy. The rest of the world has this concept of democracy of people working together to make decisions, whether it's at the village level, sometimes even at your house level. If you have that kind of situation in your family, you're making decisions, you're discussing what it is, how things are going to be allocated, your budgets, what's the rules for the family, what's the rules for the village, what's the rules for the nation. That is the process of democracy. We have been separated from that because democracy for us only starts when we're talking about elections. Otherwise, it ain't no democracy that we're talking about. We don't even have the assumption that we participate in democracy other than when we're told to vote. And lastly, let's talk about what elections are. The intent of elections is to have a non-violent struggle for control of the state.
Sure.
Think about this. In older days, it was warlords going against warlords to control the ground. Right? Gangsters against gangsters. If I knocked you out, I took all your game, I took all your resources, and I took all the land, all the people. That's not sustainable. How do you fix that? You agree to have an election so that you can say, all right, I win, I get to have control of the state. Why is having control of the state important? The state is the courts. It is the school board. It is the military, the police. These things compel you to follow the rules that they make, and also the city council and the Senate and Congress. They get to decide what resources get deployed. You have all these hurricanes happening. They decide what resources get deployed. That is why having control of the state is important. That is what elections do for you in that hierarchy of democracy. Beggars or people who need something done. As opposed to saying, how do we get state power? How do we have control of the destiny? How do we make policy? That's the problem that we're going to address. And even as this election unfolds, we'll talk about that as well. Thank you.
Interesting. This is going to be a fascinating discussion. So we have Brother Everett who was looking at the micro, community ground, us on the ground. He said we have become beggars. We don't know about each other. He mentioned resources. Brother Nami looking at the macro. We talking about systems, institutions. They mentioned power. We're going to go to Baba Asar. He mentioned earlier, he called out Dr. Amos Wilson, who talked about quite extensively about power and what it means. But Dr. Asar is also a counselor, therapist. So what do we do when you have a group of people who have been historically traumatized, mentalized, diseased? How do we come in even with the elections? Baba Asar, please.
Peace and blessings. I like to say, I want to kind of, first and foremost, kind of build off of what Baba Nami said, in the idea that sometimes and many times people speak about that people disappear until the presidency comes or if that election comes. And I like to say that's when we only look at politics through the lens of electoral politics. And even those of us who are in these rooms who operate in politics every day of our lives, everything we do, the very clothes that Mama Etna is wearing right now is a political statement, right? So what I'm saying is, so let's stop that, because we understand that we are fighting on all levels. But I have to also admit that we're fighting, from my standpoint, against each other because of that trauma, and we're operating out of fear because of that trauma. And I think, to be honest, from a clinical standpoint, that most of us, we believe that we are doing the right thing. And that because we believe that we're doing the right thing, I'm talking about those who even are voting for the guy named Trump. I'm saying in their minds, they are doing the right thing. And we have to understand this. And I think until we understand this, we'll continue the same problem. And so when I look at the mainstream politics that goes on, I see the white patriarchal, white supremacist party, what we call the Republican Party. On the other hand, on the mainstream, what is allowed for us to kind of choose between, for the most part, is I'm going to say it, and it's the white feminist liberal party. And why do I say that? I say that because the most radical you can be is what white feminists have prescribed. And I'm saying that trickles down to all of our institutions, that trickles down to academia, that trickles down to the counseling room, that trickles down to what we can say and what we cannot say. And the most revolutionary, the most radical we will be in most instances, I'm not saying the brothers on this panel, I'm not saying the people in this room, but what is allowed is what white feminists say. And I'm saying is that we have to have more nuanced conversations about all these political points, and I'm saying it, including what is my body. I'm saying because African people see things as a collective. And and to say that and to just exclude, I'm not saying at the end that we don't make a decision, the decision is your body. But I am also saying that we have to also look at the man, woman, and child and be very careful that we don't get caught up in their fight, the white patriarchy versus the white feminists.
So I'm gonna push back a little bit. So Baba Sarsa, you're saying the white feminist is what's controlling politics today, the political?
I'm saying that is the most.
Or is it the white man, or is it
both
of them collectively?
We both, and we sign up for. We kind of follow both parties.
Response that Brother Everett or either Nami. That's an interesting perspective. Response.
Yes, the brother is correct, but you have to understand the system that we're in. This system, this government wasn't made for us. In fact, if anything, it was made to keep us down. So when you start talking about voting, you're not just talking, I think the brother mentioned it, it's a global system to control resources. Dr. Claude Anderson always mentions a race. If black people were in the track meet, we'd be last. Because it's a race for economic power, it's a race for resources, it's a race for education. In our community, we lack a lot of those things. So the system isn't built for us. So when we start thinking about voting and elections and things like that, we actually have to overturn the system. And the way you overturn the system is to collectively come together and start demanding things and saying that we're going to fight and we're going to be together with that fight. Until we do that, then they are making the decisions for us. Our sisters don't have a right to speak out on how they feel about their body because whoever's in that system are voting and making changes in laws to affect our sisters. So until we start coming together as a whole, I mean, we talking about UNIA and Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey always said something that stuck with me. Everywhere he went, black people on the bottom. When he went to Southern America, black people on the bottom. When he went to London, black people on the bottom. When he was in Jamaica, black people on the bottom. I feel the same way. When I go to Detroit, to see the UNI up there, they're on the bottom. When I go to Chicago, they're on the bottom. When I go to DC, they're on the bottom. When I come to Baltimore, we're on the bottom. So there's a reason for that. It's systematic. So when we start thinking about voting and we start thinking about the laws that are affecting us, we have to start coming together so we can change that system and law. And that's something that we have to really intellectually deal with. That this system is not meant for us. And the only way that we can really get true value is to come together and demand some things so we can fight for each other as a whole.
Brother Namdi, as you were speaking, you mentioned Brother Namdi, UPP, you have run candidates. You talked about the institutions, about the various level playing fields, and about getting power. How do you propose, what's the first level playing field that black people begin to get power of, begin to manage it? Then I'm gonna go back to Baba Assar. You talk about the white feminists, but where's the black woman fit in at that? Go ahead, Brother Nam.
So let's talk about some of the assumptions that are built into electoral politics. So some of the assumptions that we make are, for instance, people will say, well, you have to vote for one or the other, right? So that's a built-in assumption that you have, which is not true, right? And that statement means that you have to either vote for one side of white power and white supremacy or the other, right? And what is built into white power and supremacy is imperialism, capitalism, oppression of human being by human being, the theft of land, right? And all the lies that are built on to maintain those kind of levels of oppression is built in your choice. Now, you can explain away why you make the choice, but all of those things are baked in that cake when you make that decision. Part of what we're saying is this: I think we have to understand and not equate the other assumption is that if you win elections, you win power. And we put those things together. It is not true. You have to understand winning power can be separate from winning elections. And we have become preoccupied with winning elections because, as I've already said, winning elections means winning control of the state. And for people who are running things, having control of the state is important because that's how you put your policies into motion. But if you are people who don't have the power to run the state, then winning power over your community, winning power over your economic situation is a part of that struggle. So we understand that using the electoral arena is also a part of a strategy of winning power over our own black lives, right? Being able to show people what examples break the assumptions that they are baked in, right, into how we solve our problems. Using collective models, being able to put leadership that has always been ignored up front, being able to follow up the electoral process for building participatory democracy and institutions after the election. These are things that are never talked about in the elections because it's a winner-take-all model, and after the elections, whoever runs, if they lose, they go away. We don't see them again another 2 or 4 years, and that's baked into, you assume that that's what's just gonna happen, you go on about your business. So I think we have to also not only approach the question about what the elections are, but the assumptions that are built in. We have to address those assumptions and then take them head on and dismantle those assumptions so that we can forge a real path that's different.
Okay, we'll go Baba Assar, where the black women coming at, then we're gonna talk about the assumptions, and then we're gonna open them to the audience. Baba Assar.
Where does the black woman come?
Yeah, because it's a lot of quite a few black women here, and you talking to us about the white woman. So.
I was specific.
No, so I just want, we're interested.
Just to be clear, I was speaking about the black sister and black male and the family.
Yes.
And I was saying that we have to not fall for the politics, as this is titled, to now fall for the fighting each other, where you see black males, not most black males, and let me say something.
Okay.
So, most black males are not voting for Trump, although that is being put out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most black males vote very similar to black sisters, right? I'm not saying it's the right vote. You know what I'm saying? Most black males vote Democratic, most black women vote Democratic. Most black males are for Roe versus Wade. Most black women are for Roe versus Wade. But we don't think that because the media and the propaganda that's put out there. I'm not, and I'm going to go on the Lord. I'm saying very close. 66% of black men disagree with what happened in Roe versus Wade. 68% of black women agree with that. Statistically, that's the same thing. When you go and look at white men, it's like 48% of white men don't agree with what. 48% of men agree with Roe versus Wade, whereas it's very disproportionate when like there's a high 68% of 66% of white women or something like that agree with Roe versus Wade. But what I'm saying is, but even with that, right? Let's not get lost in the sauce in the whole isolated mind when we talk about families and we talk about children, we talk about hearts, and we're talking about people who are all being impacted by it, and how people too, and how these things show up in our living rooms, in our homes, in our houses. And I think we have to have real nuanced conversations that we're not ready to have because the propaganda that's put out there by the two parties that, the duopoly, put out propaganda that we now want, that we are doing this, we are doing that, and we believe all types of things. We don't even look at the data or the statistics. And I don't even, the problem is we shouldn't have to do all that. The problem is the society is corrupt and they put out all types of propaganda and mislead you on purpose. And then they call you dumb because you don't read every day. Not everybody can read like Brother Namdi. You know what I'm saying? Like who wants to read all the goddamn time? Some people doing something different. You dig what I'm saying?
Hey, wait.
You know what I'm saying? Like we shouldn't have to do it all the time. I'm just keeping it real. If you think that everybody gonna start reading, you to fool yourself. But what I am saying is there's something wrong with society and it's corrupting us. I'm not saying we shouldn't read more. Let's don't get that. But look, I'm gonna let y'all know what right straight up. I don't go with just regular answers because I think we need to have more deeper conversations. And the deeper conversations I'm speaking to, where the black woman is in this, is the black woman and the black man and the black community and family. I'm African-centered. Let me just say that. And I'm saying that collectively we need to make these decisions. And we need to look at why our sisters are having abortions. It's not enough to say my body. I'm saying that's okay, it is. But at the same time, we need to say, why are our sisters having abortions? Because of poverty, oppression, unemployment, all types of things. Issues in relationships with their male counterparts. We need to look at those things at deeper levels and heal our community. And if we do that, I know it's a lot of work, but we got to do all the work or we're going to continue to stay in the cycle that we're in. Men and women can't get along. I counsel people every day that can't get along. And I know most of us are afraid that we're going to die at 70 without a partner. A lot of us. You understand? So I keep this real. I counsel people on real levels.
No, we here to counsel. We're gonna pull you in a little bit. We here to counsel.
So I'm not falling for the stuff. I see everybody's hurting and everybody's fighting.
And it's interesting having you on here. I'm glad you're on here today.
I mean, I know that's enough. But
No, you get more than enough. You get the most. Okay. Any feedback? Go ahead, Brother Namdi.
I also think it's very important because the interesting thing about black women specifically is it's an extremely dependable voting bloc.
And also keep in mind we have Kamala Harris. Okay.
Right. And so some of the assumptions
Oh, somebody just said she's not black, but that's another.
well, that is
But not yet. We're gonna go. So go ahead, keep
First
talking.
of all, that is a wicked propaganda spread by people who hate African people.
That's right.
She is an African.
Right.
She is an African.
Interesting.
She is an African. It is a wicked way to attack the African personality that is worldwide. You don't get to be an African in Jamaica. First of all, you don't get to be an African in America if you don't first stop in Jamaica, right, to ship your black behind to America.
All right,
so
now.
let's stop that.
Okay.
You must challenge lies because imperialism has none of your best interests ever. Never has your best interests.
It's not.
Now, just because she's an African don't mean she serves your interests. That's a whole different discussion. And we got to be clear about that. Because if you don't understand that, then you don't understand what's happening in Africa today. But let's get back to where we are today with elections and the role of black women. It's a central question. Because first of all, black women make up the majority of African people in the world. That is the first thing. They make up the majority of African people in the world. And if we're going to talk about democracy, then the majority got to have its voice heard. And it is a nuanced discussion about all of this stuff. It is a nuanced discussion, but they're going to be heard. And we also have to produce a new world where that power has to be respected, not in the old way, because we now exist in a world where automation exists, where education exists. We cannot live in a world where half our human resources are subordinated. We can't live in a world where half our intellectual, our labor, is now made secondary to a whole community's need, right? They have to be a part of that nuanced discussion about where it's going to go. And we can't allow white supremacy to take that skill, because we're seeing that. They're taking black women and utilizing their skills, their connections, and their resources to serve their interests. But that ain't nothing new. Because all of America took all of our ingenuity.
Speaking of the black woman knows exactly what she wants, and it's up to us to make sure that her rights are being heard. I don't like to speak too much on what women feel. Women know that what they feel, and the black women can speak up definitely on what they want and what they want to reflect them. I think the main point when we start talking about elections and the process, I think it was mentioned, where do they stand? They're higher than what the black man is. They're more educated in the system than what our brothers are. We have educated brothers, but if you look historically, black women get more education. Most women are teachers. There's not a lot of black males that are teachers. So we really want to get their voice out there, get their opinion out there. But more importantly, we have to start asking ourselves, why are we even separating that way? Why am I looking at what's going on with the black woman and what's going on with the black man when we should be one? All of our problems should be together. So we should be fighting that way. We're talking about a woman's body. Whatever my wife feels, that's my opinion. You know what I mean? Because we won. Whatever my daughters feel about the opinion of what's going on with their body, I'm voting that way. And so again, when we start talking about moving in a way to vote, moving in a way to change the system, we gotta come together and do that. We gotta speak up. So I'm sure all the sisters in here, they can speak on what they feel about it. I can just tell you to be on code as a black man, whatever y'all feel collectively, that's my vote.
And that's your, Brother Everett, you co-chair with Mama Earth. So y'all do it.
And that's how we do it in UNI.
Interesting. Brother Sergeant, I'm gonna open it up to the audience. Go ahead, Brother Sergeant.
Yeah, I want to even be clear that I think black men, I want to add the black men into the conversation a little bit, right?
I'm gonna pause you right there. We'll come back to that, but I wanted to open them to the audience because we have all the, I'm gonna pause you right there. We'll come back to that, but I wanted to open them to the audience because we have all these. So any thoughts, questions so far?
I guess.
Go ahead, Edna, because you know I'm about you. You already know. That's my code. Get him, Edna.
First of all, thank y'all. First of all, thank y'all. Thank y'all for this forum.
Oh, yeah.
I'm Grandmother Edna. I'm an independent, forensic activist in Baltimore City. I'm independent simply because I go door to door. I see the cracks, and I work with the people that's inside of those cracks, while I also stand on the earth and look at all the phenomenal leaders that for some reason in my system, with all the intelligence that we have standing on the earth, excuse this word I'm getting ready to use, but how the hell we keep walking over top of people in them cracks. So my system is saying, the group that I reach, because I'm sitting in this room with people that's got phenomenal organizations, and I'm working in communities where the people are getting none of this phenomenal research and help. So I am, excuse me, Dr. Winkler, but I do have to say, independently, so it won't be an I independently have decided that I'm going to school the people that comes with me. Because I think what's missing in all our, we keep using the word Africa, but that's the improper word for our people too. That's something else I teach, that's not what's on the side.
So, Mama, you got a question? Say, because I'm gonna pull you.
Yeah, okay, so my question is, why are all these organizations that I know and affiliate with do not realize yet that we need to start a legal system for our people? Our people are lost because they have no legal perspective. All that y'all talking is based down to one word. We need to be putting our children in college like I'm doing in my family. We're funding doctors and lawyers in my family. Because that's what the Ethiopian people in my charge, I figured out we needed. Because all that we talking, it's all legal. People don't know how to vote because they don't know the legal concept to voting. People don't know that you can vote 50 times, but the electoral college elects who runs us. So until we start figuring out legal components to this definition of this European Constitution that we don't even teach our children to read, so they'll know how to be aware of it. So I just think that we need to start addressing the legal component for our people in the cracks so that they can come up and meet the powerful people standing on top.
Thank you, Mama. That's an excellent question. How do we devise our own legal system? Because that's all you're talking about. You're talking about a whole legal system. That's interesting. Very good question. Next, Mike. Okay, go ahead. I want them to answer that.
Go ahead.
They're gonna answer that. Go ahead.
Okay, you asking how do we create our own legal system? I believe we have to come together and create our own entity. A lot of people don't know when the UNIA introduced the flag. It's not just a flag. It's a government. It's a constitution to that flag. It's an anthem to that flag. It's a military to that flag. A lot of people don't know that about the UNIA. Just because you're not a PAN dues member, all black people, Africans, are members of the UNIA. And so until we start doing things like that, come together under one flag, creating our own laws, creating our own system, then we're always going to be separated. That's why that U is for universal. Everybody around the diaspora, and including Africa, to come together so we can create these things under one flag. So I hope that answers your question. Until we get out of a system that pretty much, or a government that pretty much governs us, it's going to be very hard to create our own laws unless we do it within a community. We govern ourselves, and that's what we need to do.
I'll quickly,
Okay.
some of us might be old enough to remember when civics was a part of education, right? So I think it's important that we notice that civics has been taken out of education. UGMA has in the past and is desirable of starting a political education program that teaches people exactly what you're talking about. Because there is literally, to the advantage of those in power, taking advantage of people who do not know, right? So I definitely agree with you, that is necessary. And part of what we were doing before was taking that political education to community associations so that we would be able to, community by community, introduce it as a way for people to get access to it. It is, you have to make it accessible. But there is no doubt to us they took civics out of education because they need a population that does not understand what politics and how the government works.
That's a very good, excellent point.
Okay. But Assad, legal system, how do we get a hold of legal system?
Okay, I think part of the problem is, I think when we send people to school, that most of the times we get, what is it called? We become, what is it called? Thank you. I'm on 2 hours of sleep. So indoctrinated, and indoctrinated into the systems that we learn. And that's a fact. Like, it's very few people who are going to go through academia and not think that what they're being taught isn't going to liberate us. We literally believe that what we learn in academia and the way that we learn it, because it's very convincing again. Because I'm going back to the liberal left. What happens is what they suggest is revolutionary. That's the most revolutionary you can be. So it's not about changing systems from the liberal left. It's about changing out the way that we relate with each other, how we identify with each other. It's about the euphemisms. It's about changing words around. But it's not about really creating a system. So there's a serious indoctrination. I think even, what's the brother's name up in the one, Henry Gates or whatever, said they went into these Ivy League schools and they went in there with Afro picks and all these type of things, and that to lead the revolution, but they came out eating caviar, and I mean he admitted to it. You know what I'm saying? So that's what happens in these institutions, and I know because I mean I literally was impacted in my own mind to some degree to think in those ideas.
Okay,
So,
hello.
you're talking about system, but also you're talking about integration, too, going into the system.
Okay.
So earlier you talked about separation.
Okay.
Question,
Comment, I'd like to make a comment. My name is Sister Kilolo. I'm in education and natural health and a few other things, and I'm presently working with the youth in the culture, educational part. I kind of have to put you in another direction according to what I see is possible for anything to grow. I think the politics is not as important as what we are trying to do to protect our families, ourselves. We need to learn to come to the table because these people ain't joking. They unplugging stuff, and are we prepared? Because you can't, let me say the reason why they don't respect one reason. Because we don't have any stuff in this neighborhood, and this is a good one. Worldwide, like you say, when it comes down to who got the power, every one of these people that speak another language in our community, they don't support us, we support them. There's no benefit at all. So it's one way it's gonna keep on rocking until we internally get ourselves together to say, take the woman off the market, because just like you said, the women are the one, you can go home and don't go to work, they won't feel you, but they'll feel if these sisters don't go to work. That's a revolution. Okay, that's the plus and the minus to the Duracell battery. It can't work without us. You understand what I'm saying? So all we need is men, and with the Million Man March coming up, we can sit down and have a conversation on that, because we are definitely planning in a lot of ways to take that move, because y'all got y'all side to talk. We need to talk. You do what you do. But a man is not, and that statement that y'all keep making, yes, we all need to be in recovery because of the isms that we've gone through. So that means don't judge, don't talk about the past. We need to roll our sleeves up with these people trying to poison us, and you know it. Amen.
Amen.
Interesting. The sister also, she talked about the women, that was powerful, and that could be a revolution, stepping out. That gives a reference to South Africa when the women decide to not have with their men, sexual relations with their men until they stop the violence. And also we saw the spike in this movement. Yeah, excellent point.
Thank you. First and foremost, thank y'all for having this, right? Because we need to have these discussions every day. Just want to make a couple points. I think government is very important, and I think Marcus Garvey, the Honorable Marcus Garvey, told us that we need to have everything that any other government have, because we have to have our military, we have to have our educational system, our health. We have to be in control of everything that happens to us as black people, right? So my point is this: when we look at this election, let me be very clear. You know, I'm voting for Kamala Harris, right? But you know, at the same time, then the reason this government is not in a revolution based upon or a rebellion based upon what Donald Trump has been allowed to do and run for president is why. Because this system, white folks who's controlling the system, is working together. Because all of us know there's nowhere in the world you could represent a government and try to overthrow the government, then you have an opportunity to run for president again. This country, if ever in life it deserves to have a true rebellion, is today. Because this man should be in prison and on death row. So if y'all can speak to that, I appreciate it.
That's interesting. They already done fast forward to a revolution rebellion. We ain't even in the first. You black people tired. Okay, this is interesting. They already done fast forward. Go ahead.
I agree with the Bible, but I would differ or diverge to the point that voting for Kamala is the rebellion. But I do agree with what he's saying. You know, but I mean, I'll just leave it there.
No, I mean, they already done fast forward to Revolution Rebellion.
Kamala's not rebellion. I'm just saying she's a choice.
I don't think that would, so that's what I'm saying. I don't think that would lead to it.
It's not that.
So I would say this.
The queen on the chessboard.
I think it's,
Says the queen on the chessboard.
but who's playing the pieces? That's
Whose
what.
game are you trying to
So,
play?
so I think let's understand this.
Okay. All
Let's-
right. All right, let's let them speak.
The world is we can learn a lot from the world. The white supremacy is under assault because of emerging forces in the world like China. There are people in the world who are challenging the supremacy of what white supremacy has been able to do for the last 200-300 years. They are in a crisis. And matter of fact, Donald Trump's Make America Great Again speaks to a crisis that deeply is felt by white people, deeply felt.
So are you saying Kamala is a chess move?
She is. But I think that's a whole nother discussion that we should talk about today, because we think elections are about individuals. We think elections are about individuals. Political parties, think tanks, right? Political action committees. These are the instruments that decide who runs. You know why we know Camilla is a pawn, a piece? Because the last piece that was on the board, Joe Biden, got taken off, and no one even, that was a damn coup. That was a damn coup. And it was done because he's not in charge of the real decisions. He is a piece and he plays his role. We don't have that kind of infrastructure to create our own candidates. What we are used to are people stepping forward and telling us to vote for them. No. We should create the institutions that choose who run for us, because they've been vetted, because they've been trained, because we have the finances. We control the campaign manager. We control the outreach coordinator. We control the treasurer of the campaign. That's not what happens. And we get the result because we have no power to do that. But let's talk about the world. Donald Trump represents a tendency that is happening all over the world. Fascism has reemerged in the world where it has legitimacy. Right now in countries like France, the right wing has denied an illegal election in the parliament when the left took the power through parliament and the president denied their election. You have a whole tendency of fascists coming into power in countries all over the world, and Donald Trump is consistent with that because white power is under assault trying to keep all the wealth they have stolen. It is important for him to emerge. That's why you have to have him run. That's why. But also, we talk about Project 2025, right? Did he write that plan? No. A think tank wrote the plan in 2021. Now all of a sudden you got to respond because 3 years later, you know about it. If a think tank writes a plan and disperses it, that means other formations are using the idea. The ideas of 2025 are already being implemented in state government all around the U.S. You have implementation of infiltration of the military by the far right, of the state governments. You have something like 20 state governments in the United States that are controlled by a far right Republican, a far right assembly, right? Both the Senate and the House of Delegates. That's a lockdown. You don't need him just to be the president to put right-wing politics into place. He's the icing on the cake because the plan is written. We have to create our think tanks. They have to write plans. So I'm just saying, he's a problem, but he's only a symptom of the problem because what we're up against is organized repression, and organized repression must be met by organized resistance.
I want to
I want to say this real quick, and also, now I'm not just talking about organized repression, you're talking about research, so you're talking about think tanks. So I know I had to do a study some time ago, over about 99.5% of the think tanks are European owned. We have no. So you talk about probably.
We do have in Baltimore.
But 99 in the world,
Yeah.
are 99 are at European owned. So you talked about a think tank that wrote Project 25, and that is now dominating the conversation. No, brother, I know you've been talking about that. We'll get to you, but I want to hear from Brother Everett and then Brother Saul.
Yes, I wanted to go back to what Brother Bill was speaking of. I think that we really got to start to be honest about who we are as a collective and our power. When we have a candidate that's black, a female says, I'm not going to do anything specifically for black people, but any other candidate that runs like Donald Trump is letting you know, I'm going to do things for my people. That's a problem. One, she can't openly say it because she's not going to get the white vote. No white person is going to vote for somebody that's going to uplift the black community. Why? Because we're going to take their resources. There's a reason for that. So until we get together and say, hey, we want somebody that's going to come in and fight for us, fix our community, help us out, someone that's from us, that's about us, and yes, we're going to do all for the community as well. That's great. The Donald Trump thing is simple. He's a rich white man and he represents white supremacy. That's who he is. He knows who he is. We all know who he is. He can sugarcoat it. He can be cool back in the day with all the black stars and everything like that. But at the end of the day, he's running for office. He's going to switch up on you real quick because it's about white power. That's what he represents, white power. And until we get black power in effect and start demanding and putting our vote to rest and choose things that we want to vote for, we're never going to be truly respected. And I think that's what I would like to say, is our vote even being respected when someone can say that they're not going to do anything specifically for us?
Good afternoon. I guess I'm looking at a panel who knows me well. Namdi, I know that I listen a lot to the Carl Nelson show, and he talks about small minds talk about each other, average minds talk about events and concerts, and the bigger mind tries to change the situation within our communities and has changed within them. So I'm hoping that at some point before this election, there is a way to get you on Carl Nelson. Only so that we can talk about what you just said. Because I listen feverishly to this show. And the redundancy of who is on the show, which, I mean, they do great things. They talk about great work. But nobody has been on the show, and I'm telling you what I know, that has spoken the way you speak from the Ujima People's Party perspective. And it needs to be broadcast. Because it's intelligent work, it's intelligent dialogue, and you can go back and forth with the best of them. So, and I'm not saying get anything from Brother Dr. Assar, and I don't know the brother on my right as I face him, but I'm Mama Ujima Musani, and I am the person that handles a lot of stuff in this community around youth and family, and a social worker, graduate social worker as well. So I am looking forward to seeing this, because this is something that needs to be expanded on a level where not just you talking to, talking to the crowd that would always be here to support you. Other people need to hear this. And that's what I want to give up this afternoon.
She brings up a good point. I want to go into that. I wanted Brother Assar to mention about Project 2025, but also I want to go into the different parties. You got Republican, Democrat, Green, Independent. I mean, I got my Shaker and socialism. The different ones, but also agenda. Which one? Who should we be going towards? So, Brother Assar, 2025, and then I want to go into what these different parties represent. Are there any benefit to any of us?
Was there a specific question about 2025?
Your thoughts on it? What's it have to do with us as black folks? Should we care about it?
I think, brother, to be honest with you, I think Brother Namdi kind of knocked it out of the park.
Okay, so let's go into the different parties. Which one should we be looking at? I know Ujima, you run your own, but you have some countries that have 8, 12 parties. Right, we only have 2 parties. We got what? How many? 70 million black folks. Oh, somebody trying to get in, Brother Cliff. So which one should we be looking at? Which one should we know about? Which one should we be aware of?
Well, I will say this, like Ujima has not endorsed any party. I think what we've endorsed are policies, right, that speak to what our community needs. We tell people don't vote out of fear, vote for what your interest is. We've heard from the PSL and their candidate that's something that we think is interesting. Even locally, we've talked with the Green Party, Jill Stein. And her positions are solid on many questions around imperialism. I think strategically there are some questions to be asked about third parties. If third parties get 1% of the vote, that allows them to stay on the ballot. They get finances so that they can run more candidates in the following election. That might be a part of your consideration. You can also write someone in. That is your democratic right. That is your right. If you don't like any of the candidates, I have written several years in a row for Mumia, because if somebody's gonna be my president, it's gonna be Mumia Abu-Jamal. You know what I'm saying? If somebody's gonna be my president. And that's your right. And it's not a wasted vote. Because again, these are ways people undermine your participation. If you gotta go to an election and hold your nose to vote for someone, you're not gonna feel good about yourself. Right. What is the emotional damage done to you when every time you learn to vote, you never like who you vote. You never feel good about who you vote for. That's damaging to our consciousness.
Brother, had a question?
Yes, my name is John. So, I realize that Kamala Harris is not the only African American in the picture. What about some of our local leaders like Brandon Scott, also Brooks, and the collection of black leaders that are coming up now? Because see, I see a different picture. I see a different picture. I see a race of people that came all the way from slavery and have made tremendous strides. Politics, entertainment, black historical colleges, inventions, Vice President of the United States, first African American president, the vast number of senators in Congress, the vast number of mayors that run our cities. So I see hope, and I see a tide and a tidal wave that can't be stopped, because as a people, we are still progressing forward, in other words.
I'd like to speak on that.
Brother say, see, hope you see progression. We're not gonna forget about people on the Zoom. Go ahead.
Okay. I like what you said. Black people phenomenal. We're the strongest people on the earth. We're the first man. So there's nothing we can't accomplish. But we gotta put things in historic value. I don't want a piece of the pie. I want that whole damn apple pie. The white man has most of the pie. And we only got a piece. And we have to really understand that. When you start speaking of certain candidates, you know, our black candidates, they're still pushing items and ideas to the collective of the white communities. Look in Baltimore, there's two sides of Park Heights. There's the one side of Park Heights, and then there's our side of Park Heights. And you can tell the Jewish community in Park Heights is getting certain things that we're not getting. So are we blaming our elected officials, or are we blaming ourselves? That's something we have to talk about. But yes, we need the whole pie. You know, we still on the bottom. We still have the worst education systems. And yes, our people overcome out of all of those tragic things that are happening in public school systems. But we shouldn't have to. We should be learning about our culture, African culture, learning about ourselves in our school systems. You know, they don't teach Marcus Garvey in the school system. I've been to Morgan, Compton, BCCC, all over black community colleges trying to ask it. You know, y'all know about Marcus Garvey? The answer is no, kinda. That's insulting. So we don't even control our own curriculum in our schools to help us be strong as a people. So you are correct, we've overcome a lot, but until we come together with our ideas and our visions and push it and say we want it all, we're just gonna have a small piece. And we're gonna be celebrating small icons instead of celebrating all of us as a people. I hope that makes sense.
Okay, I've got a couple of people.
I like to.
And I'm gonna get to people on the Zoom.
Okay.
Go ahead, respond to that.
Well, I think it's.
Brother say, think we're making progress, he see it, go ahead.
So I think the question is progress again for who? I think I would contend that if you look at history, the times when black people made the most progress is when we're at the highest levels of organization, right? So even when black people didn't have the right to vote, you saw a high level of organization, right? Which meant we could make decisions about our economics in a way that we couldn't now. We could push for the ability to vote when we didn't have the vote. Even right after slavery, the first Reconstruction, you had the most radical change in electoral politics because black people who were members of the Republican Party had the most radical ideas. The fact that you have a public school education came out of the black Republican, participation to ensure that people would be educated to read, write, and all of that. I think we have to go back to that question first. What kind of organization level do we have as a people? What are the ideas that drive us forward? The brother spoke about the Jewish community. A lot of the Jewish community is inspired by the concept of Zionism. It creates an ideological glue for a lot of that community. What is our ideological glue about what drives our decisions? You can't be outside of that ideological glue and get elected by a community, right? As I stated before, we are in a situation where people bring themselves forward to be elected. They are not processed by us. We don't develop the kind of political leaders we have today, right? So they do what they do. Some may indeed move it forward. Some may just be for themselves. We don't have the ability to punish them, right, if they make these decisions. And I think that's what's really important for us, is to build that kind of infrastructure. And I think it's even more important on the local level because you have more direct access. This thing that we're seeing with the presidential election, that is so well beyond our weight class. You know what I mean? It's a whole nother game, but it's important. But let's talk about the local politics and the kind of influence we can have to make real progress.
Before Brother Solomon say, Brother Nominee mentioned about organizing, and Brother Kenyatta mentioned that he's so glad we're having this because the Pan-African organizations are so disconnected from the grassroots organization. And so I know I just interviewed Brother Nominee last week on my podcast, and he's been in business 30 years, but now everyone's place is an institution. Once you get that long from the ground, it becomes an institution. You talking about having our own institutions. Go ahead, Brother Then we're gonna get Mama, and I see you, and Mama see you.
And I have Baba Kenyatta who wants to make a comment,
Okay.
and Baba Khalid Rahim is here as well. So I want to make sure they get in.
Okay, go ahead, Brother.
All right. I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate the discourse. I appreciate all of us, sitting grounded in our bodies. When I think about that question, I think about it in a way that I think what you're saying, I appreciate it. I appreciate your sincerity with that. And I think that most of us who live here, including myself, and if my fellow panelists, admit it or not, that we want to see the best, and we do acknowledge these things in our people on various levels. Now, I don't think that we can even discount that there's individual people in political positions that mean us good, right? But I think that is very different, and many times, as I always try to come from this clinical standpoint on a social level, is that many times I find that our arguments we're missing each other's argument. So I think sometimes some of us are fighting for how we best survive under the status quo, and then some of us are speaking from liberational frameworks, or how does liberation look? I think, how do we best survive under the status quo and how things are going? The problem I have with how do we best survive under the status quo things just stay the same, right? It just means that when I walk down the street, people ask me all these questions and they talk about democratic politics and all that, I got good friends and colleagues in the city that are democratic politicians. But at the same time, I understand how they don't want to say certain things or do certain things, even under the system that we're in. They want to do things, but they feel like they can't say the thing or do the thing, or they won't continue to be elected or what have you. Well, but one of my things is, growing in Baltimore, one of the things I think is we should take the long way home, or the best way to have our heartstrings touch what's going on North Avenue. Not take the long way home to look at the scenic route and the trees and all these type of things, because I think if you really look at the conditions of many of our people, I'm not saying all of our people, but many of our people, we are suffering. Our conditions are deplorable, even to levels lower than third world countries. So, and I'm not even saying third world countries is a bad thing. I think that's part of the problem too, the way that we frame these things and we utilize these things. But I'm saying that it is more deplorable than third world countries. And I am also going to say that, so I think that the argument though, many times is, what is going to liberate us? And that might sound like a hoop dream. I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow, but what I am saying is there has to be some people that are pulling no matter how long it takes. And people often on the other side will say that we have all these individuals who are doing all these things within the system, begin to now try to beat people who talk about revolutionaries insane, idiotic, crazy, but at the same time, everything is connected.
and we know everything is connected, even if one doesn't win an election, as Brother Namdi said, there is something pulling, there is something pulling on other people. Somebody has to be that people that are accountable. I'm saying even when we talk about third-party politics, people are now beating up on third-party politics. But I am saying that I'm just going to put this on the record. Now, Jill Stein and the Green Party, what have you, I'm all up for all the third-party politics. But because they are the closest to getting to that 5% threshold, that is where I would probably put my vote at this point. You know what I'm saying? I would support other parties, but something, I would put my vote there.
Interesting. Wow, this is an excellent conversation. Y'all brought down from the macro all the way down to the ground, local, excellent. Zoom, folks on Zoom, I'm sorry, unmute.
Right.
Kenyatta, Brother Kenyatta put so much in this, I can't even keep up the reading. Go ahead, Brother
Baba
Kenyatta.
Kenyatta has made a number of
Go ahead.
comments in the chat, so
Go
I
ahead,
want to
speak, Baba Kenyatta.
I want to bring him in, so he might even want to restate what he said in the chat. But go ahead, Baba Kenyatta. We also have Baba Khalid Rahim, who was in line to be one of our panelists on Zoom. So after Baba Kenyatta, I want to at least give Baba Khalid Rahim an opportunity to introduce himself.
So Baba
as well.
Kenyatta, you can make your comment, then we'll go to Brother Rahim. Go ahead, Baba Kenyatta. Is he on mute?
No, he's not muted, but I'm not
Maybe he stepped
getting
away.
him. So.
Brother Rahim, are you there? Can you
Okay,
hear us?
let's try Baba Khalid Rahim. We'll try to get back to Baba Kenyatta and see whether or not we have any kind of an issue with getting our audio in.
Brother Khalid, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, there you go.
Good.
Yeah, you can speak up just a little bit, but you want to make a
Yes, can you
comment.
hear me?
Yeah, you want to make a comment?
I'm sorry, you said that again?
You want to make a comment or
Yeah,
a
First
question?
of all, good afternoon.
Well, Baba
Yes.
Khalid
Can you
Rahim
hear me?
was yes. Baba Khalid Rahim was one of the people who was going to be joining our panel from Zoom because he's in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So, Baba Khalid, go ahead.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, well, again, thank you. Good afternoon. All power to the people and free the land and the Hoover. I'm glad that I have an opportunity just to share some ideas and thoughts. I've been listening for the last several minutes and a lot of very good commentary in terms of politics and the community and grassroots organizing and movement building. Just to kind of extend some of the comments that were made, before the 1960s, we had just a handful of Black elected and appointed officials across the country. It probably was less than 200. Now we have several thousand. But when you look at the conditions of our people, you would think that we still only have a couple of hundred. So it's not so much about the numbers, it's about the qualitative impact of their political representation. And it's just a lot about the lack of political power influence, because we can determine who's going to occupy the White House, who's going to occupy the halls of Congress, and so forth and so on, and even local mayors and council people. But we don't have a lot of political power, and a lot of that has to do, I think, as Brother Namdi was pointing out correctly, with how we gave our political power almost exclusively to either one of the two mainstream political parties, right? Because the Republicans were the party that was being branded as the abolitionist party and the party that was opposed to slavery. When we did get the right to vote and we did get the right to represent our own interests, we gravitated to the Republican Party. But we all know that the Republican Party sold out the national Black community in order to get their own presidential candidate in the White House. So-called Hayes-Tilden Compromise during the 1870s, right? So that was the first major political sellout. And then the second sellout came in the post-civil rights era, right? Where basically we switched, before then we had switched almost en masse to the Democrats, and they sold us out in the post-civil rights era. So now here we are, decades later and generations later. I would say we have to chart our own independent political course. We must develop independent political formations and parties We must run our own candidates based on slates that represent our best collective interests. The vast majority of black people in this country are not celebrities. We're not football players, basketball stars, right? Most of us are just regular working class people. Some of us own small businesses. A growing number of us are into a different type of economy, the gig economy, where we work as much as we can, we work where we can, right? So we need to develop a political agenda and have a political party or formation that represents that type of reality for the vast majority of black people. And we need to get away from always giving our political capital exclusively to the Democratic Party. That doesn't make any sense. And actually, it's quite stupid. Because the Democrats, if I were like a Democrat, why would I want to negotiate with someone who I know it's almost a guarantee that they have to vote for me, or that they're gonna vote for me, whether they like me or not, whether I do anything for them or not, right? So we have to break that culture, and we have to move to a whole different level. So I just want to stop there. I work with a couple of different political formations. The New African Independence Party is a radical black independent political party. I also work with a Black Radical Political Coalition, which is the National Black Radical Political Congress. So I'd like to share that, and I want to continue to be part of this great discussion.
Thank you, Brother Raheem. So the main thing, we need to develop our own political party and political agenda. I think that's one of the main objectives. Mama Cynthia.
I share a shell.
Okay, Mama Cynthia.
Can I speak?
Is that Baba Kenyatta?
Yes, Brother Kenyatta.
Okay, good. We didn't get you before, so.
Baba Kenyatta, you had a question, comment?
Yes, I have a question and a comment. Actually, this is a wonderful forum. I want to thank everyone who's participating. Observation is that in Baltimore, in particular, we have a closed primary system, so it really limits the ability of independent political parties and candidates to run and to win an election. So I think that that's an area that Pan-Africanists as a collective could address. The other thing I'd like to mention is that most of the Pan-African organizations represent the tip of the spear, but on a neighborhood level, we're largely out of touch with the largest black voting constituency, which is elderly black women. I happen to represent two nonprofit organizations in Southwest Baltimore in the Rosemont neighborhood. We have regular monthly meetings, and I have never seen a Pan-African organization leader show up to any of our neighborhood meetings to discuss anything that's important of interest either to their organization or to the interest of the people. So I challenge you as Pan-African organizational leaders to get in touch with your grassroots neighborhood organizations. Like Brother Nani mentioned before, if you gotta go door to door, or, I know the city of Baltimore publishes a neighborhood directory that lists the neighborhood organization meeting dates. But you need to get in touch with your neighborhood organizations because they need your leadership. The other thing I'd like to mention is that we need to have independent black freedom schools like the Soul School and the Timbuktu Center that infiltrate the after-school programs in our schools because they're not teaching our children to be free thinkers or about our history. And so if we want our children to be free thinking leaders in the future, we have to go into the school system and develop independent freedom schools for our children. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Baba Kenyatta speaks to the vacuum that is occurring in the neighborhoods, but also gave us assignment to go into the hood.
I wanted to ask Baba Kenyatta one
Mama
real
Edna
quick
spoke to that
question too.
earlier, and I want to get this brother.
I just wanted to respond just quickly to his.
Okay, then I want this brother to ask his question, because he's been very patient.
Very quickly, very quickly about the election. He is correct about the way the electoral system is set up in Maryland. It's not like that in other places. There are open elections as well. But The thing that Maryland has done with the closed election has created their own problem that we need to learn how to exploit. So the closed elections mean only registered Democrats can vote in the Democratic election primaries, registered Republicans and independents cannot. What has happened not only in Maryland but around the country is the number of independents have grown exponentially every year. There are almost more independent registered people than Republicans in the state of Maryland. And people under the age of 35 overwhelmingly are registered as independents. It's going to change the game. What that means is if you look at the primary turnouts, they're almost always under 30% participation. So people who are winning primary elections are winning it with a minority number of voters. Then you come to the general elections. Most people who are in the general elections are running against open slates. They're Democrats who have no competition. Independents have to learn how, not to just, in the context of what we have today, independents have to learn how to run good general elections because most people don't know that the person who wins the primary isn't actually the winner of the elections. They think the winner of the primary is the actual winner, and it's not. That's because we have no civic education for people to know that the general election still has to happen. So there are opportunities, we have to exploit that as a part of what they created.
I just wanted to, okay, I wanted to touch on Baba Kenyatta's point before he goes. And there's a real quick question. You mentioned the need for our organizations to get in touch with these neighborhood grassroots organizations. If you are aware of, or if you can show us or tell us where this particular director of these organizations is, put it in the chat or email it to me or email it to anyone else who might be interested, then we can start to rectify that particular problem that you mentioned.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ellis. We're gonna take one bite at a time. Go ahead, brother.
How you doing? My name is Kaji Imani. I am a supporter of Ujima People's Progress Party. My day job, I work at a local nonprofit that supports cooperative businesses. So folks who are working on, who want to build a business in line with principles of cooperative economics, we support them with advice and what we call non-extractive capital. But I did want to echo Namdi's point about controlling our leaders, right? The institutions that currently control us, the two-party system, they have, as Namdi described, systems in place that control their politicians. That's why you have somebody with all this black support saying openly she's not going to do anything exclusively for black people. I think it's embarrassing that we have a leading, Democratic candidate, I say we, but the Democrats have a leading black candidate, right, and currently a black governor in the state of Maryland, who are both a party to a plausible genocide. That's embarrassing, right? It's infuriating.
Yes.
Governor Wes Moore refuses to end the executive order that the previous governor put in place that would make it illegal for businesses that are exercising.
Can you mute them, brother?
Mute everybody.
Yeah, Governor Wes Moore is maintaining this executive order in the state of Maryland that makes it illegal for businesses to boycott the state of Israel or companies in the state of Israel, which is wild. Everyone has the right to boycott. Part of the reason why black people are where we are today is because of the tool of a boycott. And so that's just a moral failure of epic proportions. And yet, in this moment, Kamala Harris kind of represents the pinnacle of black political aspiration, right? That's deeply problematic. And so when it comes to controlling our politicians, I do want to point out, I learned about what's happening in Jackson, Mississippi through Ujima People's Progress Party and their political education, which taught us that since at least 2014, black communities in Jackson, Mississippi, dealing with economic extraction from this, black city controlled by a primarily white state legislature, right? They are responding to, economic extraction and racism through an organization called Cooperation Jackson, they have three pillars as part of their movement, right? One is, yes, political candidates that take an anti-imperialist stance, which most Democrats do not and cannot. So political candidates are one part of a three-part plan, right? Another part of their plan is people's assemblies, right? These are communities that come together in ideally mass meetings where people can come up with a community agenda collectively, right? They come up with that agenda collectively, and then they select whoever will carry that agenda, right? Whoever that person is secondary to the collectively defined agenda, right? And then the third component of this, people's assemblies, the third component of this is cooperative economics, right? Putting some economics behind your politics without replicating capitalism, right? Which most of us don't know how to do yet. And it's kind of, we're raised in it, so when we want to do a good thing and start a business, we tend to go for, capitalist business models. So these three components are what they're using in their movement to actually create candidates that they control to support an economic system that will not just replicate what we have in blackface. And I think environments like this and organizations like Ujima and other African organizations could be the basis for that type of multifaceted organizing.
Excellent, you was worth the wait. Excellent points. Excellent points. Also, he brought out about genocide. I wanted to ask our panelists about that because both parties have pledged their support. We have a genocide happening in 2024. I want y'all to speak to that after Mama Edna.
Okay. I'm gonna try to get this out of me. So I teach, because I'm like on the street ground, I just would like people to understand. I'm gonna stay with the people in the cracks. Because we need to clearly understand with professors and scholars talking to professors and scholars is missing the people in the cracks. So I want to say this. So I go on to college campuses because like you said, they're not teachers. So if the professors have their ideas, I go on the campuses and identify with the students who have a total different perspective because I'm on there. This is why I'm making a documentary with a black university about the fact that we're missing, and we're doing a movie because of the fact, because the professors have their level of who they need, but the people who need it are missing getting it. In 1947, the 100 Negro women was marching in the street massively, talking about everything that all you gentlemen and everybody in this room is talking about now. And I'm 77 years old. They was talking about the same system, same voting rights, same civil issues, same issues that we are still trying to make pretend that they just erupted. That's a 77-year-old crisis because we are not doing follow-up. Y'all don't have to hear me, but I'm in the street. I hear. I sat in, I'm going to use me as an example. I sat in my house. I do legal. I filed a complaint against a major insurance company about my insurance payment. This is an example. They never left my house. They mailed me a packet with every food distribution center in the state of Maryland, every housing in the state of Maryland, everything for medical assistance, everything. And I'm sitting in a room in organizations that's saying that they do this, and I know they don't. And I'm not being disrespectful because I'm in the street with the people who calling me up. I'm in the Waxer Center. I have an office there. I invite every leader in here, but I'm too small for them to come into my involvement. But if they did, they would meet the people that they're talking about, that they're not helping. I was just at your organization meeting. No one from your meeting called me back. And I have information for Mama Earth because I just met the National Negro Association of Nurses who know nothing about the Black Cross nurses, who they both need to meet and get in. We trying to do collaborative community. Me and some sisters are trying to do collaborative community. I'm gonna give y'all the mic, but I'm telling y'all, do not write my sentence off. You talking about Donald Trump, you're talking about Canadian Jews. That's why we can't work in America, because we don't do genealogy. Y'all talking about Israel, you're talking about Christ. Talk about the bloodline of these people that have damaged the world everywhere they went. Them Canadian Jews is what you do not, is not what y'all talking about here, but that's who's creating this catastrophe in our country. For Maryland is the United States of America. Maryland, the state of Maryland. If you study the history of Maryland, you wouldn't be so fighting about politics, because the state of Maryland is the United States of America. Go do your history. I travel.
Excellent, excellent. Mama Edna keeps reminds us about the cracks, the people in the cracks. She also reminds us that Dave was talking about this, 70-something years ago?
77 years.
Excuse me, 77. Thank you for correcting me. And also she spoke about the Jewish people, which was a comment about that earlier. I want to get the people on the Zoom. Excellent comments, Mama.
And my brother over here wants to speak too, so we gotta let those know.
Okay, you want to respond real quick, Brother
I wanted
Everett? Get the brother on the
there's
Zoom.
like three different people that spoke. So to the elder that was speaking about organizations reaching out, I'm glad Grandmother Edna did say that. We reach out to community organizations all the time. In fact, I've called several times community association leaders. In fact, this time last year, I believe, we had a meeting, a town hall meeting, a panel discussion, and invited Baltimore City Community Association leaders. Today, we just did a community cleanup at Park Heights. So we're out in the community. I think he said Rosemont. We'll definitely reach out to your community president again and make sure that he's getting our emails and so forth, because we definitely are a grassroots, as we would say, Grandmother Edna said, we on the cracks. You know, we go to the hood to do our work. So I wanted to make sure we talked about that. When we start,
What's that scripture? The work is great, the workers are few, something like that.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah, yeah.
right,
Go
right.
ahead, Brother Everett.
Also, what the brother was saying, he made some valid points on how we should go about moving and how he's noticed other people, how they were moving. I believe he said, what was the state?
Yes. Cooperation, Jackson.
Mississippi,
Very
right.
important
Cooperative
organization.
economics is key. Dr. Claude Anderson speaks a lot about that. But I just want to make sure that we also focus on, whenever we start to move as a community, we have to start thinking one thing: race first. We have to start putting our race first. Everything that we collectively decide to do should be about us. And if we sit in this room, hopefully that after the panel discussion is over, we can start talking about some things that are affecting the community so that we can come together and start pushing it. We follow the Marcus Garvey philosophy in the UNIA. I think somebody mentioned businesses. When we start our farms or our grocery store, what have you, we invest in that business. We kick out money and we put into the business, and then we get stocks in return for that business. So in order for us to start growing as a community, I just want to stress this even more, that we have to start investing in ourselves and putting our race first. And like the brother said, I think I was the one that mentioned that earlier about her saying that she's not going to do anything specifically for our race. That's not on her, that's on us. Because we're not demanding. If you're not going to do nothing for us, sister, I mean, you're not getting my vote. But until we change our philosophy and thought process on that, she's going to do what she has to do politically to win. So I'm not mad at the sister for that. It's on us now to start demanding a race first mentality.
Excellent. Thank you, Brother Everett. Brother Nolan, then Brother Asa.
Yeah, I'll try to do this quickly. So just to be fair, if you study the work that's being done in Jackson, their cooperative model for economics is an anti-capitalist model, and it actually contradicts Dr. Anderson's model. It really does. So you have to do, and it's been working. It's a worthwhile investigation. It's been going for 10 years. Worthwhile. I will say this, Mama Edna, you are correct, and we have dabbled in that process. It is not easy work. I live in Hanlon Park, which is right off of Hilton and Gwynn Falls. I'm a part of the community association there. I've been on the board. I'm also the president of the VQA, which is the Victorine Q. Adams section, right? We have the farm right there. I'm the president of that association. That is something that Eugene has looked into. It is not work for the faint of heart. Once you go into that work, it's not a stick and move, it's a stick and stick, right? You can't go into those places and be like, I'll be back next month. You gotta stay. And I will honestly tell you, the desire is for us to do that kind of work, but it also requires you to have enough resources, people, to stay there. I live in my neighborhood, so I'm able to invest. Like I said, I've been the president of that association for 4 years. That's work, you know what I'm saying? And just to do that, and it's not easy work, but it is the kind of work that pays dividends because you can spread even if you just set the agenda for what is the site. I can't tell you that every person in my neighborhoods believe what I believe, but they know what they expect on the agenda, so we can have conversations and we come to decisions as part of that. So I think it's important to definitely understand the importance of that, but also have people who are prepared to dig in, because that's just not something you do and then get out.
Brother Sar.
Hold up real quick,
Brother
Dr.
Everett, I'm
Dennis.
about to say.
I just had to,
Go ahead.
one more thing. The United Negro Women's Association, I spoke they were at the convention center, so I did go and speak on the Black Cross nurses. I'm on, I just wanted you to know that. They had a convention this week.
Okay, thank you. So Brother Nami talks about going to the grassroots. It's not just sticking in and out, but sticking. It's a lot of work. It's everyday work. Go ahead, Brother Asar, your questions, thoughts.
I'm not sure what I'm responding to.
They were responding to Mama.
Oh, Mama,
Yeah, talking about the cracks and how the work is needed daily.
One thing from when I look at things again from I want to say a psychological, clinical, but on a social level framework, is that I would urge us to understand, or just maybe perhaps, and I think we do, but when we're in the struggle, when we're fighting, the work is exhausting. And many times we become tired, and it's easy for us to begin to point at each other and say what we are or what we aren't doing. And I think that we have to also realize that this struggle is hard. And many of us are in these struggles are doing work at various levels. Like, for example, many things we don't know about each other. Like, for example, I'm the president of I'm talking about this revolution stuff, but I also understand that what was the Panthers talk about survival programs. So to me, some people will argue that, like, I'm not, look, but he's gonna be surprised, but look, the thing is, the research supports, like Dr. Jared Ball, and he looks at this whole idea of black bomb power being a myth and all that type of thing, and how we're being confused with this black capitalist agenda. And that's not an indictment on any of our ancestors that became before us, because none of us are perfect. And I think that if we can't evolve our ideas, then we become stuck. And that's what traumatic people do on an individual level, and that's what traumatic people do on a social level. One thing I'll say is, there's plenty of programs. There's plenty of people, but there's people, we're tired. Let me just say that, we're tired, but I guess let me just close it like this. I think we should fight the urge of pointing the fingers at one another, because all of us most of us mean well. Most of us mean well. And if we can really begin to deep breathe and look at that, then I think that we can begin to come to some understanding. We can have conversations that don't overly charge each other's bodies, and we can listen to one another. I mean, to be honest with you, I find my place in these environments as from a mental health standpoint, from a social mental health standpoint, and even as we talk, many times we don't understand how it's triggering one another, and how before, even like when one person is talking and everybody hands up, I'm not saying it's itching, right? But there's no way we can be listening to one another and we're like this. And if there's like this one point got stuck. I'm talking about both sides, right?
and not to have the right answer already formulated. Like, I would challenge us to go deep within the moment and really think about it, because in that moment we can really even challenge our own thing that we were thinking about. Now I wanted to ask the brother, dear brother, if he could, if he can later possibly talk more about this business boycott and what that looks like. I know you kind of mentioned it, like I'm saying businesses can't boycott or something like that. I wanted to hear more about that, but nonetheless, you can talk to me on it after this is done as well.
Okay, excellent. I want to get the people on the Zoom. Brother, also I wanted to mention, and Mama is talking about it, and Nami said it, is that we don't have the organization we used to. At the height of Black Lives Matter, like I do prison work, there were hundreds of us. I went to an all-day conference at University of Baltimore Law Monday. I was in the room LBS. It was only 4 of us. I mean, most of those folks, they have gotten jobs with foundations, they TED speakers, they movie stars, they doing documentaries. It's very little of us now that's even doing that. So that's why the crackling got big, because the wave went back down, right? And that's why Nomley said it ain't just no in and out now. So now you ain't got no organization. Before you had 100, now you got 2. How you gonna do it? You know what I'm saying? So how do we get the groups back?
Part of the problem also is that, especially I would say as far as grassroots activists that have any kind of a Pan-African focus, quite frankly, we don't have the horses. We don't have a lot of people that can go around to each and every single one of the neighborhood organizations that meet with them. Back about 10 years ago, myself and Baba King, and we were working more specifically with the 6th Region Diaspora Caucus. I'm still with them, but they're one of the organizations I'm with. And one of the things that we were talking about doing, and when we started the town halls in 2007, the idea was to reach out to our grassroots communities, get the people out of their neighborhoods, get them to come to a town hall, get them to determine what our agenda should be, so that then they can determine the people who will represent them on a national and international stage, and then take their issues from the grassroots to the world stage. So we didn't know where to begin with the community organizations because there were so many. So we actually went to an umbrella organization that dealt with supposedly all of these different neighborhood organizations. We talked to the then president, I won't say his name, he's not there now. But we talked to the then president, we told him what it was we wanted to do, and you know what he said to us? He said, you need to go and talk to the continental Africans. Because we said the word African, we talked about bringing black people's concerns to the African Union and to the United Nations and to the world stage, and his response was, we should go talk to the continental Africans instead of talking to the African Americans. So there are assumptions that some of us make, and this is sort of to Dr. Asar's point. We make assumptions about each other and we judge each other prematurely.
I'm gonna pull you in a little bit.
So that's one of the things that we kind of have to counteract now. So that's my piece.
Okay, so let's get let somebody in.
Yeah, now I'm going to let someone into Mama Saeed. I'm going to let her into the Zoom, but now I want to bring in Baba Charles Barron, because he is Baba Charles Barron is there. He is. I'm going to ask him to unmute, and so he is another one of our panelists who are traveling from Zoom. He's out of New York City, and so I'm going to and maybe speak a little bit on his perspectives on this.
So Charles, Robert Barron, you can enter yourself briefly, and you can make a comment or a question, because we're about to start rounding this out. Brother Barron.
All right, well, thank you very much for the invite. I just wanted to say that
Sounds like we have an unstable connection.
Was there anybody else who wanted to make a comment or question on Zoom?
Yeah, because Baba Barron has his screen is frozen.
$100 billion.
Oh, here he is. He's back.
We ran for office and we won. We beat the machine, the Democratic Party machine.
Okay,
Baba Barron. The panelist asked, can you kind of restart, because we kind of lost you.
Yeah, you froze for a second.
Brother Cliff, I'm gonna put you on pause for a minute. Brother Barron, We need you to go back to the beginning of what you were saying. Go ahead.
Okay. Once again, I'm Charles Barron. I came out of the Black Panther movement in the 1960s with Reverend Herbert Daughtry.
You went out again.
Yeah.
And he's saying some important stuff. Is anybody else in the Zoom that want to make a comment or question? Anybody else on Zoom?
Can I
So he
just say,
come
can I
back
say
in.
one thing?
We had to go up against Barack Obama.
Let him go, let him go.
You can't hear me?
Go ahead, Baron. Go ahead. Hurry up, hurry up.
Oh.
Because you keep going out.
So
Say
we
it.
had to run against the machine that had the backing of Barack Obama, Hakeem Jeffries, Eric Adams, who's in a lot of hot water now. And we were able to beat them for 21 years. We won the city council seat, and my wife won the state assembly seat. We took over the community board. We had the judicial delegates, and we wiped out the political infrastructure of the sellout, stick fence Negro politicians in the Democratic Party. We beat them for 21 years. We were able to get 3 new $88 million schools. We were able to get 3 political prisoners free, Herman Bell, Seth Hayes, and Jalil Montekim. We were able to get a reparate. And basically, I could spend the rest of this talk about all the great accomplishments. But the most important thing is we raised the consciousness of the people that we were getting jobs and having food banks and stopping landlords. We stopped gentrification. I came in there, 90% of our community was black and brown, 70% black, 20% Latino, and it is still that. Not Harlem, not Bedford-Stuyvesant, not Crown Heights, because they got sellout Negroes who are neo-colonial puppets of the Democratic Party, and they maintain the same kind of policies, 80% market, 20% affordable. Affordable to who? And they wound up having their communities gentrified. We stopped it. We're gonna continue to fight in those arenas. They have the seats back, but we had them for 21 years. And now we're working with the National Black Radical Political Convention with Brother Namdi and Brother Khalid, so we can do the same kinds of things all across the country. Revolution will happen from the bottom up, not the top down, and no one of those parties are options. We're going with Dr. Cornel West to build the Black Radical movement even further on the ground. I'll stop there since it's at the end of your day, but
you sound like a whole
They
town.
never gave us the fight, so we
Yeah,
took
you
it.
sound like a whole town hall yourself. So hang with us a little bit more. We definitely want to get your contact. Brother Nami, you want to make a comment? Anybody else on Zoom want to make a comment or question? That was excellent, Baba Baron. That was wonderful. Where you at, Baba Baron? Where'd you do that at?
Thank you.
Where'd you do that at, Baba Baron? You in New York? You in down south?
Right now, I'm in Georgia. I'm gonna speak at the Shrine of the Black Madonna at the Shrine of the Black Madonna in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia. We're gonna speak there tomorrow morning. Then we'll be back to New York.
All those accomplishments. Where did all those accomplishments take place at?
From in the East New York
Baba
section
Baron.
of Brooklyn.
In New York, Baba Baron. Where did all
In
those?
East New York, Brooklyn.
Okay, you got East New York, Brooklyn. Okay,
In East New York, Brooklyn. You know, one day I would like to have invite you up there. I'll take you on the tour so you can see all the schools, the housing. We changed the whole infrastructure. We even got a community center for $20 million. We have power to tell the developer, if you want that passed, you have to get the city council's approval. And I, a black, radical, in-your-face revolutionary, I am the city council member. So we were able to make him build a community center, and after 20 years, we're gonna own it.
So you became city council member. Okay, we see you. Okay.
I just want to point out one thing that's interesting.
Go ahead.
And this is some of the discussion that doesn't happen in Baltimore. The brother ran as a Democrat, but he built an independent infrastructure. And as he said, he wiped out the infrastructure of the mainline Democrats. Baltimore City is Democratic up and down the board, but there are no independent infrastructure. We don't run and own these brothers and sisters who are in the Democratic Party. Until we start creating our own infrastructure, even if you want to do the Democrat Party thing, I challenge you to build your own independent infrastructure, and you can do what he just laid out. If you dare not build your own independent infrastructure, you're just talking about the same imperialism in blackface. I'm not playing.
Powerful.
Let's start with that. Let's get started on that.
Infrastructure. Anyone else had a comment up here? That was an excellent comment. Go ahead. Anyone else?
Well, I did want to comment basically on something as you close out the last statement. This idea that there's not a lot of workers around, and I do want to just emphasize the idea that black capitalism, black individualism, John Calvinism is part of the issue, and that pull yourself up by the bootstraps. You know, this meritocracy conversation. All this type of thing is part of the problem, and I'm going to just say individualism is an issue. And it doesn't matter how many black businesses you have, if these black businesses they say look, what's popular with black business people, they'll say stuff like, I'm not just black business people, we learned it from white business people. And what we say is, it's not personal, it's profit. It's not personal, it's business. It's these type of things. See, again, if we don't change the infrastructure of all of these things, all we're going to do is continue to oppress. And so I did want to say that. And so hence, what we're pushing out here is individualism. We are pushing individual agendas when we are pushing black capitalism and individualism. So people will not be at these places.
Peace and power, everyone. I just want to piggyback and back it up a little bit from Dr. Winkler said about we have a tendency to not be compassionate with one another. I listened to you, Mama, Grandmother Edna, when you were saying that someone reached out to the Black Cross nurses. So when I say we don't have compassion with one another, and you said that this is some hard work, it is. Especially those who are working, that live alone, that work 12 hours, and still being able to maintain in an organization. If no one reached and called you back, then you should have called me or try to reach Everett. No one knows what's going on in someone else's life unless they reveal it. I went through 4 funerals in the past couple of weeks. Funerals was very hard for me because of my mom, but I had to be there to be that support system. Don't count it that we're not working out here because we are at work. Don't count it as that the job is not being done because we are trying our best. I am trying to get as many young Black Cross nurses, those that will go out there so that we can share the responsibilities. When you're handling too many things at one time, you have the tendency to drop one, a ball or two. I don't plan on dropping any more balls because out of being tired or being involved in other things in the community, you're not able to be present. That's what we have to do. We have to come together in a united front, build with each other to see what each other can offer so that it won't be so exhausting on one another. You can't build on exhaustion. You can't build on mental health trauma or being so overwhelmed with the affairs that's going on today. We are needed out here in this community in a whole. In East, West, Baltimore, South Baltimore, wherever part of Baltimore, Maryland, we're needed. We also need people to come in and give us assistance. So if we can't do it alone, we have to do it together in a united front.
Can I just make one quick comment, Bill, before you comment? Just one. Real quick, I kind of feel a little tension to me, but this is what, I didn't mean it, like I don't think y'all working. I meant that we are missing the people in the craft, because I do support, I went to a Black nurses, I went to a health fair the other day, and just like I'm saying here, I talked to the National Black Negro Association, and the first thing I asked them was about y'all. And they were real arrogant. Oh, but we don't know them. I said, well, maybe you need to know them, because the work that they're doing is so vital. And I got her, when I finished talking to her, she gave me a personal number to give you. So I don't want y'all, I feel a little attention to me.
No, it's not.
But no, I'm really saying this. When you meeting a individual like myself, I don't have a college degree, but I do the work. I see that I'm gonna say this, me, all the young people that come under my charge of college, children with jobs, family. I got a brochure here when I sponsored 500 children when I started my thing. I followed these children. I'm telling y'all, what we gotta do is, don't Baltimore ego trips. Don't get offended. I just want y'all to know I'm here because I'm in the street. I went to that Saturday to your meeting. What did I do? I bought every event I went to, I bought carloads of women. I started out with 1 carload of women, and we bought 3 carloads of women, because I gather people from event to event. So I want y'all to know I'm not in discompliance with y'all.
Thank you, Mama.
I'm just here to,
Everybody's working is important.
I'm let y'all know that we gotta go deeper underneath the crack, because
I'm gonna close this, but David Murphy sent a text. He said we'd like to hear y'all talking about our resources opposed to other people's resources, right? That's from David Murphy. But I just want to make sure I'm clear, right? In terms of my support for Kamala Harris, right? You know, first of all, the Jews controlled every damn thing. Let's get that straight. Irregardless of who's in the White House, that they gonna support Israel. I'm simply saying today, then at this particular time, we have a choice to take a man that had no respect for nobody, that tried to overthrow the government, you know what I'm saying, opposed to a sister, irregardless of her politics. Then there's a choice that we gonna have to make. So for me, I'm clear that we need to be taking Kamala Harris at this particular time, because we need to make sure that Donald Trump does not have an opportunity to get into the White House to do more damage than what this man has already done. And I'm closing with this. And when we look at politics today, it's a new crop of generation growing up with Donald Trump's behavior, and that's the direction that we're going in this country. So until now, and thank you, but until we have a revolution, and I'm clear about that, right, to overthrow this government and restart another government, then this is the type of behavior that we're gonna have. So for me, Kamala Harris.
I see.
Okay, all right.
Real quick, I'm hoping that we can get with the brother in New York so they can infuse us with that energy that gives us a pathway to do some of those things. And I'm willing, and I'm a New Yorker, okay? And so my attitude is that, you know, I come from the South Bronx, and we burn down buildings till we get what we want, all right? So, that's serious, okay? So, the thing is that, in addressing what Mama Edna is saying, I just want to say that everybody has something going on.
Yeah.
And there are families that can do stuff because they have support. When I look at Brother Assar, he has his wife Camille, his sons. He got their family. And they can come together so that he can do what he has to do, Camille can do what she has to do, and the family supports that. When you're alone, and you are trying to do stuff, you can only do with so much stuff. So when we do this I thing, and I did this, and I did that, we're not working from the premise of saying, I am because we are. And that may make you feel like somebody is coming at you. But what we need to say is that we need to work together the best way that we know how.
Yeah.
And we need to forgive each other when we can't do all that we can do. Because sometimes we can't do but so much. That's what I'm hearing from Mama Earth. And that's what I'm hearing from the people on this panel. And I know that I do the work that I do, and I do that work in particular vacuums, and I'm learning every day. I've been down to Memphis with Journey, trying to learn how to do some great stuff and bring it back to Baltimore. So we are here, and you're talking to the choir. Now we got to talk to somebody else, and that's the people that's out here.
Sister Tony,
Beautiful, thank you, Mama. Thank you.
I do want to say that, to Sister's point,
That's
Brother
excellent.
Charles
I want
Burns.
to put in a word you're looking for is give each other grace.
Yes, that's
Go
right.
ahead.
Brother Charles Burns is going to be one of the panelists and presenters at the National Black Radical Political Congress. And that, again, I know we introduced that in the beginning, but that convention will be online. It's a webinar on October the 26th and 27th. That's nbrpc.org, nbrpc.org. You can register there and be a part of that discussion. He's been very helpful about the kind of institution and what it looks like, even within that playing field. I also want to say, Brother Bill, I'm glad you made that point. And I think what I've learned is I'm not really debating anybody's vote, because the truth is African people work very hard to have that vote. I don't have to agree with your decision who you vote for, but we work for it and you can spend it the way you want. But by the same token, if I say I won't vote for an imperialist who wages war and genocide, then people have to respect that as well, right? Because it's under the Biden-Harris administration that weapons of mass destruction are being given to the Israeli state to wage a genocide that we are watching daily. And we've become so numb to it that when we say it, it doesn't even mean that we are literally watching people who are organized and who are willing to fight the same oppressor who oppresses us, and we kind of like, I'll vote for Biden. But that's a political. No, I'm not disagreeing. No, I'm just going to say this. I'm not disagreeing with your ability to make that vote, but I'm saying what it means politically for our people. We have to recognize that there are other people who are in a desperate life or death struggle against white supremacy. And we don't even have to like those people to understand that if white supremacy can take an L, it allows us to have the freedom to make movement forward for our own struggle.
Only thing I'm asking is this, now, who will go into the White House to be president today? Any of them that's not going to support Israel?
They all will.
Absolutely.
Listen, I have a very simple point. African people can live without imperialist parties. We can live without them. We have before and we will. So choosing one of them as a form of harm reduction is not a solution to the problem. The answer to the problem is being organized, because if there is a revolution, history tells us one thing and one thing only. You have to be organized and ready to be able to live through it. Not what we see now, not what we see now, not what we see now. We have to be organized.
And let me just say, I want to say something real quick. I happened to be in DC yesterday, and I listened to the radio, and the Native Americans was on. And he was saying how his group, he said they'll just probably sit this one out, because both candidates, he said, us Native Americans, we can't vote for somebody back in genocide. And so, as Africans, we do have to get real with ourselves. I mean, we've been victims of genocide. Some people say we still at genocide. So, you know, we're going to have to, what difference does it make? Whether the who's in or out, will our situation change? But we got to be real. Oh, okay. On Zoom, you had a quick question, bro?
Yes.
Okay.
Yamini Kanyua, third year seminary in Baltimore Metro Seminary, and the owner of Kingozi Farm Labor Contractors LLC. Mine is a two-part question. I want to know where we are in the form of nationalization as far as those individuals who sit before the UN and the African coalitions, as far as if there can be anything set up in Maryland under the Religious Land Act for our brothers and sisters, as far as what similar to what they've done for Oyo Tunji in the Carolinas, done here in Maryland, as far as we acquired our own land. And I want to know the projection of if Trump gets into office, if you can point me in the right direction by there being a 30,000 cap on the agricultural visa, if that opens up the avenue for discussions for me to then house my brothers and sisters in a missionary and accommodate them to come and work on those empty agricultural visas for those farmers that are not meeting their quota.
So you had two questions. So what's your first question?
My first question was, can we set up something in Maryland for national sovereignty under the Religious Land Act?
Okay, so, and thank you, that's your first, so what's your second question?
My second question is, are there any individuals, I'm affiliated with Park Heights Plantation.
just a question.
So, my question is there someone that can point me in the right direction to get these agricultural visas approved through Homeland Security and the Department of Labor?
Wonderful, excellent, very good.
I got you. So the first, I don't even know which one went first. I answered the agricultural part, because when I first met you, I saw, what was the name of your YouTube again, brother?
So on YouTube, I'm called Sonship Soil. It's all one word together.
Son, good. So I know that you're into agriculture. We take that very serious in the UNIA. We actually have a farm in Curacao, the island of Curacao, and we have a farm in Liberia. And we're looking to do the same thing in Maryland. Right now, we don't have a farm, we have an agricultural garden, our agriculture coordinator who lives in this area. So agriculture is very important. It also speaks volumes as far as us being independent.
Land sovereignty.
That's right. So I'm not exactly sure, maybe one of the other two brothers can point you in the direction of getting a grant or something like that from the government. That part I'm not too sure of, but what I could tell you is ways to invest. I know Lady President knows a brother that has land that was looking for people to invest and create sections of the farm that every organization will have their own part, and they would work together as far as what they would grow. That's still an option. So the only thing I could tell you as far as that, I don't know exactly as far as the grants and whatnot with Trump, but to look as far as investing with one of our groups as far as getting some land, getting some grants to get some land and doing your farming there. What was the other question? Did I get both?
Is it?
That's your first question.
Yeah.
That's your second one.
Yeah, that's the second.
Where are we in claiming nationality as far as those that sit with the foreign?
Okay, I got you. I remember that now. So a lot of people don't know the history of the UNIA. The UN, before it was the UN, I forgot what it's actually called, but I'm gonna use the United Nations. Yes, the League of Nations. They actually acknowledged the UNIA as a government for black people back in the day. In fact, when you used to go get your passport, if you were black, they wouldn't tell you to go to they would tell you to go to the UNIA division to get your passport. A lot of people don't know that history. But also they need to know what happened. They eliminated our leader, and they also did a lot of COINTEL to eliminate some of the things that we were doing.
Yes, they did.
Actually, until we come together globally, which is one of our things, why we have divisions all over globally, to say that we're one, then that's not going to come together. So before we even can think of that, we need to start making sure people that call themselves Jamaicans understand there's one. People that say they're African Americans understand we're one. And then we can start looking at that part of it. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, anyone else? We got folks who gonna wrap this up in 20 minutes. We're about to wrap this town hall up. Anybody on Zoom?
We had a couple of people who had their hands up. LHS Late Show, I'm not sure if they are still with us. I'm gonna go to the gallery and see if they are still here. And their hand is up again. So their hand's been up for a little while, so I'd like to be able to get their question or their comment.
You want to comment?
And I know Baba Khalid Rahim has his hand up as well, so I guess LHS Late Show and then bring Baba Khalid Rahim back in.
Folks, put your hands up. You can unmute and make your comment or ask a question.
And Haki Ami will be third because he just raised his hand too. All right, so here we go.
Okay. More of a comment than a question. And one of the things that that's highlighted
You got a bad connection.
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit, so.
Oh, I said that we have to get out of this mindset of Democrats and Republicans and build our own political base.
Okay, we got the first part and then you broke up.
Okay. Anybody else?
And of the people who aren't doing the work in our community to come in and represent our community. You are the ones that are actually doing the work. The people that are there now are actually representing us and representing our interests, and you are the people that we need all day, not anyone else. Now, you're the ones, because you're the ones doing the work. Stop inviting people from the outside that want to come to the meeting and say what they're going to do. We have to get the people that are already in the meeting, people that are already invested in working in our communities.
Thank you. Thank you.
On one side or the other, you have to realize that the people that they represent are Google. They represent the Coca-Cola brothers. They represent all of these billionaires and the lobbyists that fund their campaign. We need people who are already in our community, that are invested in our community, and then we need to put this support behind them to put them in a position of power in order to represent us.
Okay, thank you. Echoing what was said earlier, we gotta choose our own candidates and infrastructure. Next person, unmute. We got 15 minutes, y'all. We wrapping this time.
Baba Khalid Brahim, did you want to add something?
Yes. First of all, the brother or the person who preceded me, I'd like to invite you to join the National Black Radical Political Congress, because everything that you articulated represents our principles and represents where we are strategically as well as tactically. I come from the state of Pennsylvania, and in the state of Pennsylvania, we also have closed primaries, right? And there are some advantages in terms of being able to put independent political parties and formations or individuals on the ballot. And so in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, for example, the New African Independence Party, we ran candidates for local office. I myself ran for mayor of Pittsburgh, but we went to court and they removed me from the ballot. I also ran for a county council position, and that was our first campaign, our original campaign. I ran for county council. We garnered 12% of the vote. And believe me, 12% of the people in Allegheny County do not belong to the New African Independence Party. If we didn't run as Democrats or Republicans, we ran under the and the African Independence Party.
Okay.
By the way, our party is a national organization. So we had a sister who ran for school board up in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and she got about 12,000 votes. So it is possible, right? So I'd like to commend the brother who spoke before me, and I'd like to extend an invitation. He either join the Jima People's Progress Party or join the NAAIP, and certainly join the National Black Radical Political Congress. I also like to say this, that before we can have any substantive type of unity, oftentimes it requires a momentous separation. That we have to separate ourselves, even from amongst elements of our own tribe or family, before we can have some serious unity. And so the race first thing sounds good and it means well, but today in the 21st century, it has to be principle first. Because if it's always race first, our people are gonna always be drawn and attracted to the likes of Barack Obama and Kamala Harris. Because they look like us, they talk like us, they come from amongst us, but they don't represent the majority of us. And so we gotta move away from strictly a race first analysis and perspective in a race, but principle type of perspective as well.
Thank you
for
brother.
your time.
Thank you. So brother speaks to race first being redefined. He also talks about separation, also running on candidates. Anybody else on Zoom? Question or
Brother
comment?
Haki.
You can unmute. Brief, we got 10 minutes, y'all. We're closing out this town hall.
All right, thank you.
I'll take it back to the panelists after this.
First African Liberation, Brother Haki, I be here. I appreciate all of the insights and as a worker, I think, an organizer and operating in the Baltimore area. And I've been Maryland for quite some time. I know many of you heard your positions, and I'm always open to listening, learning, and watching it and observing just a historical context. I recall reading and hearing from Walter. Not Walter Williams, I'm sorry, the professor at the University of Maryland, but also the brother that did the State of the Black World Conference have been done.
Yeah, lot of connection issues here. Brother Aki, you're frozen up there for a second.
About Jesse Jackson's run in '88, and that they were trying to push Jesse Jackson in running a third black party, and for some reason Jesse Jackson was unable to do that, or lacked vision or money or whatever that he felt. But someone can give perhaps one-on-one insights to that. But
Okay. Baba, oh, here you go. Okay. Finish up real quick because you keep bouncing in and out.
Lance Mitchell IV, both theoretically was attempting to start this black party. Not sure where it goes, but every once in a while, former Senator Larry Young may talk about that. My point, and now I see, for instance, the former Green Party presidential candidate has endorsed someone from the Liberation and Socialism Party. And I also just mentioned that it was Cornel West didn't even get on a ballot in the state of Maryland. So look, there's a lot of complex things going
Brother Aki, you
on.
have a question or a comment?
Yes. I have a lot, but many may not know, but I'm active. Many people think somehow I'm, in the Democratic Party or whatever, but I've been first for quite a long time. I've been revolutionary longer, but I understand diplomacy. At my point, I throw it out for anybody, but I also let me just I've been to the United Nations just past couple years, and just last week, 2 weeks ago, and before anybody on what I said, we will be going back for next 100th birthday. We're gonna get 100 for 100 from the DMV. We need a bus from Baltimore. We're gonna honor our brothers from school that run the buses to New York.
Brother Aki, did you have a question or a comment?
That's my question. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Let's be revolutionary.
Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, next person who had a hand up.
Baba Kenyatta.
Please unmute. It was somebody, and then we're gonna go back to our panel. We're gonna close it out.
Baba Kenyatta has his hand up.
I think, Brother Baba Kenyatta, brief question. We got 10 minutes in this town hall.
Yeah, I'd just like to emphasize the need for independent black candidates to run on a local level. Brother Nandi, especially your organization, I think could provide great leadership in this regard. But I also would like to challenge everybody in the room and who's, within the sound of my voice, put your money and your human energy behind candidates and political parties that reflect our needs. Because if you don't, they're just...
Okay, he went out. Anybody else on Zoom? Hand up, unmute. Question or comment?
I think we might have gotten everybody who has their hand up.
So we're gonna go back to, we're gonna round out our panel. Final comments for us. What
legislators out here.
What
Run
does?
for office like that brother Barrett did up in Brooklyn. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, we got you. Everybody got that. Okay, so to each of our panelists, final comment, what will an African political agenda look like for us? Give us 3 points. What will it look like for us? This has been an excellent town hall, by the way. Go ahead.
And I actually have a slide that's up on the monitor right now.
Okay.
And it's on Zoom right now, and it was partially inspired by conversations that I have had, especially with Brother Nandi and with Dr. Asar, about building an independent Pan-African political infrastructure.
thank
That's something I wanted to make sure we got to before we finished.
Okay, so we're gonna keep that up. So, starting Brother Everett, what will an African political agenda look like for us? 3 points each of y'all. Go ahead, Brother Everett.
Okay, I'm sorry, I was checking out what Brother Cliff had.
Take it from the slide.
Brother Cliff had said, but I just do it in my own opinion of what it would look like.
Okay.
And I just think it has to be an overall objective to uplift our community and bring us together for our gain. We need to start looking at resources. We need to start looking at our education, which is the key to everything that we do as a community, is our education system. and resources and businesses and so forth. So I think that when we go into a collective of selecting a candidate or building a party, it has to focus on those things to build up a strong community. And if you can include community value in that, and to bring everything together, I know the brother had mentioned race first. When I say race first, that doesn't necessarily mean picking a person that's of color to be your candidate. It means picking somebody that's about my race. My family is my race. That's what we teach in the UNIA. I got my wife, I got my kids, and I got all of y'all. We all family. And then we look at things like that, and we move in a certain objective and direction to put our family and put ourselves in position to win would be okay. Last thing, I don't know if everybody remembers, in Baltimore was places like Bethlehem Steel. And the best way you could get to Bethlehem Steel is if your family worked there. If your family worked up at the plant, then you probably had a job, and that's how they did it. Well, that's how other cultures move. We talked about the Jewish community, the white community alone. You know, they're gonna hire their own. If you look at a lot of the, what's the word I wanna say Hispanic, Latin culture, and you see their businesses, or you see an Asian business in the black community, you see nothing but Asians and stuff like that. We have to start hiring our own, we still have to start looking out for each other, and the best political party is someone that's gonna have our interests to build us up collectively. So when I hear the indigenous, the Indians say we're not voting for anybody because there's nothing in their favor, that's how we have to be.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Brother Nami.
Yeah, thank you. So obviously, yeah, the three points for agenda. I think, first of all, I think we've heard a lot of discussion. I think there obviously needs to be a way for our community to have an assembly to talk about what the agenda looks like. Because it is not a monolithic community, right? And we have to learn how to listen. And we're gonna have to accept that parts of our community want different things, right? And we're gonna have to figure out how to make that happen. I also wanna just emphasize that the biggest thrust that Ujima has talked about is kind of infrastructure that it takes to put any agenda together. Because you can have all the great ideas, if you don't have the infrastructure to carry it through, it's gonna be very difficult to do any of that. Obviously, economic independence is going to be a part of that. Democratic participation of all the people in our community to be a part of that. And also national liberation, right? Which I have to say cannot have any participation with imperialism, right? Our independence is always at peril as long as white supremacy and imperialism is allowed to coexist.
Wow, so that's all.
Yeah, I echo what Brother Everett and Brother Nami said already. I don't honestly think that any of us can, I think 3 points would be a disservice, to be honest with you. What I will say is this, that I do echo that in much of what people said in the room today. What I will say is, just to add to what has been said, is that I think I challenge us to reframe what we said. And I also appreciate what happened here, even you, Mama Edna, and Mama Earth, right? I appreciate that. I think we need that, right? We need that back and forth. And these places need to be healing spaces. And we need to be able to talk back and forth and have that dialogue, that concern that Mama Edna had, and that concern, in that conversation, right? We need to have that conversation. And we have to settle our bodies, as my dear brother Curtis also always speaks about. We need to understand, from what I heard earlier a little bit, I want to reframe this idea that we are the quiet, because we're not. We are the ones that need the healing. We need the healing. I've been involved with organizations too long to continue to think that the people outside are the ones, even in the cracks. Because the reality is those inside the organizations are the ones in the cracks, you know, and because we're struggling, you know, we're struggling and we don't know how to get along with one another. And I'm talking about from a very psychological standpoint. If we do not learn how to coexist and disagree, and even if we don't know how, we have to even understand how we present our stuff. And that communication is mostly nonverbal.
and tonality and all of that. Because even if you say I didn't say you need to vote for Kamala, I've heard that 1,000 times in this room today. Even if you say I did, you better not. Nobody. I think we most agree that no, we're not voting for Trump. I want us to know that, right? I think because most people begin to think that we say go vote for Trump. No, I don't think nobody in here. I mean, some people might say, well, go vote for Trump because maybe he'll put some tension behind us or something. But I'm saying, outside of that argument, Bob and Cliff would debate that one, right? but what I'm saying,
I'll probably say something in about a minute.
Yeah. So the thing is, I think is we have to stop seeing each other as the special ones going out to the field to heal them when we need to do the healing ourselves.
Excellent. Wow. Excellent. Y'all give him a hand. That was excellent town hall. A lot to unpack, and his story. This is something that was one for the books. And
I do want to throw in something to kind of tie this all together.
I'm gonna pull you in. You better close it out.
Before we know. Well, technically, it's not even 4 o'clock.
No. These people hungry. They've been here sitting there for 3 hours. Come on, brother Cliff. Come on down.
Three general points I want to make. 1, us. 2, voting. 3, that slide that I got up on the wall right now. 1, as far as us is concerned, Bob El-Sar put it pretty well as far as we are actually among those who need healing. I remember years ago, right after Imam Jamil Al-Amin was convicted and sent to prison, Mama Ialua Ferguson, the wife of longtime political prisoner and fellow ancestor Baba Herman Ferguson, spoke to a group of us in Philadelphia. She said, a lot of people say that when we gather together in these political prisoner conferences and these Pan-African conferences, that we are preaching to the choir. She said, if we are a choir, we are damn miserable. Because we were supposed to save him. And we did not. So we ourselves, as activists, as organizers, and not every activist is an organizer either. Those of us who are in this arena and fighting this fight right now, as conscientious as we are, as much effort as we put in, we've got some issues with ourselves too. Like I said, our Pan-African organizations are traveling in cliques and all talking about black unity. If you're talking about black unity, you can't be traveling in cliques. Number 2, voting. We've talked about voting for a third party. We've talked about voting for Kamala Harris, but we still haven't talked about the strategy behind how we do it. If we're going to vote for a third party, we vote for that third party with the idea that we are going to help build that party. Once upon a time, the Republican Party was the third party. This goes back to one of the lies we tell ourselves. Third parties can't win. Once upon a time, the Republican Party was the third party. It was the Democrats and the Whigs. People got behind the Republican Party and built it to the point where now it can steal an election once every 4 to 8 years. All right? So you can build a third party if we are conscientious and consistent about it. So if you're going to vote for a third party, that's your strategy. If you're going to vote for Kamala Harris, let's remember, no matter who the president is, we're going to do something we don't like. We loved when Barack Obama got elected. Jesse Jackson cried, a lot of us cried, and then Barack Obama thumbed his nose at the World Conference Against Racism, increased drone attacks in Afghanistan and Iraq, increased prosecution of whistleblowers, and bombed the crap out of Libya. All right? So even our hero will do something despicable. Why? Because our hero is the President of the United States, and the President of the United States is going to do that. We talk about Kamala Harris not having a specific agenda for us. No president of the United States is going to have an agenda specifically for us because they're not our president, they're a United States president, and that's how they're going to roll. If we're going to vote for Kamala Harris, we have to do something that, quite frankly, we failed to do up to this point. Whoever we vote for to become president, if they win, we have to be ready to fight them too. Problem has been when the Democrat, our hero, has won. We've gone home, crawled under our blankets, and gone to sleep secure in the knowledge that our hero is going to sort everything out. Then, when they don't do it, we get mad, and we dare the Republican to take over. We say, don't make us organize. Then the Republican wins, and what do? We again go home, crawl under our bed, and wait for the storm to pass.
Brother Cliff,
so regardless of which one wins, our response has been the same. We go home, we do nothing. We need to organize in those 4 years between one election and another, and not suddenly get active when the presidential campaign comes. Now, as far as this last slide, I'm going to real quick. Independent Pan-African Political Organization. Brother Namdi and I talked about that. Pan-African grassroots community control. We even talked about the idea of a Pan-African grassroots community council that would take the place of what the city council does for the city of Baltimore, but do it for our community. An unbossed and unbought group by any political party, so that then the political aspirants have to come to us. And then we throw our agenda down on the table and say, give us this if you want our support, which means we have to develop our own Pan-African agenda. And it's not like it hasn't been tried. You had the Gary, Indiana 1972 convention. You had the Black Left Unity Network Freedom Manifesto. UPP has a platform. In 2017, right here in Maryland, after those 5 Pan-African town hall meetings we had at our social club, we actually developed with a number of people in our community a Pan-African agenda for the community in Maryland. Ever since then, I've been trying to get us to review it, to look it over, to update it, to compare it to the other agendas and try to find something that all of our Pan-African organizations can embrace. That's what, in my opinion, we need to do, and we have not done it.
Thank you, Brother Cliff.
So I hope to contact Grandmother Edna about contacting some of the on-the-ground organizations she's with, and Brother Curtis as well, and I'm hoping to meet again with Brother Namdi and with Brother Everett, and Dr. Sarr and I talk on a regular basis. We need to create a situation where all of our different organizations can sit around the table. That's the whole idea of the coalition. Different organizations sitting around the table working on a cooperative, comprehensive, Pan-African strategy that all of us have a hand in, all of us have skin in the game, and all of us can benefit from and help the community through.
Thank you, Brother Cliff. Thank y'all. All right. That's it for this town politics. Excellent, 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 excellent.
Point, Bob.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. All right, folks. We done. Thank y'all so much. Thank y'all. Love y'all on the Zoom. And we'll do it again. I know in a few months. Peace and blessings, family. Peace and blessings.
All right.